very quickly is an update and a discussion with regards to the STEEP grant. This year we will be applying for a STEEP grant, and Tony and I wanted just to alert the Board of Selectmen as to, and we've thought about several different projects where we could use it. We originally were looking at a project at Keys Road, specifically to incorporate a bike playground, an ADA compliant trail around the entire fields, athletic fields, and potential for a slab, I guess I'll call it, but an opportunity where a slab where we can do a splash pad, pickleball, and a number of other things like that. That project is not fleshed out enough for us to really apply and feel good about that application based on our conversations with people at Sprague and some other people who do this all the time. So we then looked at the possibility of doing the Grove area, which we have all the data that we need for that. That's a project that had been anticipated, and the amount of money that we could get was near what was anticipated as needed. So that was a project we looked at because based on again, reviewing the information with some of the experts, they felt that that was a better project that we'd go after. Subsequently, Tony spoke with Jeanette in regards to a project here at the Center Building, where we didn't complete the project as it relates to the bathrooms and the outer area of the gym, outside of the gym, and a couple, and also I think they were also looking at the area. Programming space upstairs where the child center is now. And that, after looking at everything and speaking with these people, we felt that that was our best option. We have all the material that we need for that, and the expenses is substantial enough to really influence and make us look at that. So that's what we're looking at. And what we wanted to make sure that you were aware of that. The reason I'm bringing it up now as part of this meeting is very specifically because it's due by the 20th. They gave it to us at the end of January, or they opened it up at the end of January, but it's due on the 20th of this month, so we have to move very quickly.
So you're making you've got some different projects, you're making choices, and you're ruling out recreation and the Grove, and you're focusing in on this. Is that what I heard?
That's what you heard.
Okay.
Primarily,
I didn't need to hear the other two things.
Let me paraphrase. You got this moving.
So let me make sure you understand. It's one of the reasons for that is obviously assessing what we have the best opportunity to really achieve. So these are all things we would like to do. And if we had money, we would do it. So at this particular point in time, this project is the one that we feel we're in the best position to obtain.
We's a pretty big word. I'm not sure that we, but I would agree that the project here that had other parts that should be completed is a higher priority than those other things.
It has several of the checks off several of the boxes which would have a successful application. One is recreational facility improvements, which this is because it's adjacent to the gym. Another is social services, senior centers, which this is also adjacent to and used by the senior center. And third, and most importantly, it has design documents already. So we're shovel ready. We can, the moment we get the grant award, we just have to do a few things upstairs, but primarily we're ready to go out to bid, start the project, and get it completed. So it checks off a lot of boxes.
The grant is for up to $1 million, and it's not.
There's a match that's suggested. We've already had a match for this because we spent design dollars designing a portion of the gym, which went towards designing. So we've designed, spent town dollars designing that area already. We also spent dollars on Silver Petrocelli to analyze the center building as a whole, of which the child center was a portion. So we've already spent design dollars on both those spaces, and so that's also a plus.
And that'll count as on that.
Right, plus the budget, we put in $20,000 to renovate the child center space. So if you remember from last year's budget process, we had $20,000 in the budget to help renovate the child center space. So there's a child center left to go to church. So that's another $20,000 we use as a match.
So no, zero match required.
So there's no additional match required.
Okay,
That's your question.
That is.
Yeah.
And would this, and the same would not apply to those other two projects?
Correct.
But no, got it.
Well, there was some match associated with waiving because of what we're doing at the work that we did, preparation work we did at the community center and the grove being tied to that.
But we don't have design documents.
Correct.
So we would have to spend, quite a bit getting design documents.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's not as far along.
Right, correct.
Okay.
Right.
So that answers one of my two questions. My remaining question now is, who's going to oversee the project? Should we get this funding? The existing building committee?
Yes, I've talked to some
We got a
members of the
team in
building
place.
committees, we have the team in place, getting a team back together.
There you go.
Get the
Get
band
the
back
band
together.
back together. That's perfect.
Yes.
Good.
Are there materials you can share with us?
So we're gathering the application, as Mika indicated, it's due Thursday, so we're sort of right in the
Yeah.
middle of putting together all the materials.
Yeah, I feel uncomfortable providing input without seeing what's what.
There's nothing, we can send you a copy of the grant, what the state puts out saying that it's available. That's all that there is right now. Everything else we're putting together as we speak.
I just remember being taken back after finally seeing the written application for the country club consultant, the bar grant. I just don't want to feel like that again. So I don't know, it's just, I understand we have to work within deadlines. Moving so quickly is uncomfortable for me. With such a little, it's due Thursday, a week
It's due a
from.
week from Thursday. A week from
Yeah, a
tomorrow.
week from tomorrow.
Are we able
At 4
to get
o'clock.
a copy as soon as you do
Sure,
have it?
Sure, yeah, you're welcome to
Of
have
course.
a copy.
By next
I
meeting,
don't know if that
you'll
helps.
have-
If you go on their website, you can see a blank copy of the application.
What we don't want to do is miss, what we don't want to do is miss a deadline. That's what we don't want to do. It's an opportunity for us to secure some funding. We don't want to miss a deadline. We're going to move forward with it, and we will be provided the documentation as relates to it. If we get the grant, we can always say no.
Okay.
That was the other piece I was going to ask. So if for some reason we wanted to
Good.
stop the project, we could stop it and just give the money back.
Yeah.
Correct. Correct.
You don't anticipate. we're
Well,
gonna do
that doesn't seem to be our way, but I do appreciate that ability and flexibility.
We've obtained multiple grants. The only one that you really seem to have an issue with is the bar grant. But we've applied for and obtained a number of different grants that have helped the town secure
It's important
things.
for
It's
us to
very
procure
important.
grant money, no doubt.
So, okay.
What do you
Well,
need for us to do now?
This is
Steve, no,
FYI.
Steve.
Yeah, well,
He
so-
got it to me.
Right, yes. So
I got it to him.
Yeah, let's move this along.
Yes, so I'll move forward with this resolution. Resolved that First Selectman Mika Cardozo be and hereby is authorized to accept on behalf of the town a 2025 Connecticut Steep Grant in the amount of $1 million for center building renovation. And further resolved that First Selectman Mika Cardozo is hereby authorized to enter into and execute any and all agreements, contracts, and documents necessary to obtain said 2025 steep grant with the state of Connecticut.
Are you named
So,
on the
I'm gonna
as
address
I
that.
understand it, then,
Please, if I might have a moment. If I'm not mistaken, we get word on the grant in April.
April, 3rd.
Right. So I don't think we need the resolution this
Don't think we
meeting.
need it.
This meeting. This
Well,
was a meeting
we were going
for,
to submit the resolution with the application.
Yes.
Okay, there is a-
That's why.
in talking to the experts, they indicated if we have a resolution prior to, that helps us in regards to securing the grant.
One of the parts of the grant
I'm sorry.
is that you need legislative body approval.
Like it shows the legislative body is in
Right.
support of the application
Right.
process,
We're
so it
not
helps
just
them procure the
Yeah.
funding.
so if I understand that, that means that if awarded, you have the.
This
It's just
resolution
a-
authorizes Mika to execute agreements.
Apply.
No, that execute agreement is beyond
An execute.
applying.
Mhm.
That's committing.
Yeah.
That's a contract.
Was
The
that
grant
motion?
application, does the grant application need the execution approval or just approval to apply for the grant
Yeah.
from a legislative body?
As the last sentence says, execute any and all agreements, contracts, and documents necessary to obtain said 2025 steep grant with the state of Connecticut. So to obtain.
To obtain the grant.
But we don't know. It's one of the things that you have to execute to obtain it is a commitment. We don't know that, really, but
So for the interest of time tonight, is it possible to just have a virtual meeting next week? That we get the document, we look at it.
Chris,
and
that's
we-
features for you.
Yeah, I'm on vacation next week, and I need that vacation, so I'm not gonna say no. But you can have it without me, and that's my choice, you know, to not participate.
But you're the one with the objections. not
Yeah,
me.
well,
I
I
want to make a
appreciate
meeting if we don't need it.
Yeah, thank you. And it's not an objection to, like, I'm open, I just,
Just like to see the.
yeah, I just don't like making blind votes.
These steep grants come around every year, though. This is a yearly,
Yeah,
right?
It used to be yearly, sometimes it's not yearly, you know, sometimes they skip a couple of years.
But it's a standard
It's a
program
standard
from the
program that
state.
comes out, correct.
Tony, are these grants going to survive this budget session that we're having in
I will tell.
Hartford right now?
This is a grant that's bonded, so typically, you know, those typically are not as susceptible to the grants. I'll read
Because they don't
you,
count in the budget, right, if they're bonded?
I'll read you what it says here, and you can make your decision. This is from the application. It says, a town resolution in support of the application for this grant, in support of the project for which you are seeking, and authorizing resolution to apply for this grant is not required. However, resolutions will be required as part of your contracting process. So you could wait if you want until the contracting process for this particular one, and maybe just do a vote to support the application of the grant.
You could do a resolution that's just, it is resolved that you authorize the first
So you take out the part about signing the contracts?
to apply for the grant, because you did that for like the
That's okay.
historical site. You could make that tonight, which shows the support for
Yeah.
that, and wait.
Thank you
That'd be
for
fine.
finding that.
Yeah.
That would make,
That makes
everybody
it
more
better.
And I'll write
comfortable.
that all
Totally fine.
together.
I would appreciate that, but
Yeah,
I'm
that's
just
fine.
one person, so.
And then if we're lucky to receive the grant and you see the application and all the materials, then you take the next step to do the resolution to sign the grant. That works. Yeah.
Modify the motion?
So modified.
It's not a motion. It hasn't been said.
You're asking them to consider a so what you're asking is, I'm asking the board to consider this
I don't think it's a
resolution.
motion until it's seconded. If he wants to modify it,
Yeah.
the board's not seconded.
Yeah.
Do we have a second yet?
I don't
No.
know who did it, we just wanted to discuss.
We don't.
Can we just substitute in that part that you just read, Tony? About, what did the application say? To support the grant application?
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second that motion, whatever you just made.
What is the motion, Sheila?
What Tony said. Cut and paste it, it'll go right in the minutes. It'll be perfect. We know what he said.
It says,
Rewind that videotape.
it just says, a town resolution in support of the application for this grant and in support of the project for which you are seeking this grant.
Yes. Support the project and the grant application.
That's exactly what it says here.
That's the motion.
And I seconded it.
Okay.
Additional discussion? All in favor? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of the 2026 fiscal year budget to be filed with the Board of Finance.
What time is it?
So Mika, as we're starting, this is discussion, do we intend to take action tonight, or is it potentially we're gonna leave this open and act later in the month?
We can. We can. The intent is, if it's possible for us to resolve it tonight, why not? But certainly we can.
So Mika, my understanding is you and Tony have made some adjustments, recommendations since we last worked together with the Board of Finance. Is there somewhere that you want to start with this?
I think it helps most if Tony starts with the rundown in terms of what we've done.
Sure. Okay. We can start with the capital. I think would be the best place to start.
And just to clarify procedure here, if we see something that is, we would like to discuss, should we do it now or wait till after you present the summary of changes, proposed changes?
I'd go over the summary, let him go over,
First.
because he might hit on something that you see. If there's something that he doesn't hit on, then we should bring it up at the time that he brings it up for that department or that line item.
Okay. So starting with capital.
Capital, yes. Actually, before we start with capital, one other thing I just want to mention is if you go to the summary, okay? I think this is just sort of an overview of the entire budget. It'd be a good place just to sort of review the summary document. And so as presented to you, this is the, has all of the departments listed along the side. As presented this evening, the budget is a 6.11% expenditure increase, a 4.45% non-tax revenue increase, and a 6.3% tax increase, which would give you a mill rate of 33.12 for real estate and 32.46 for autos.
This is down from the approximately 10%.
About 10%. And you can see the capital budget is the last line. This is capital non-recurring. And that's what we'll be going over. And it's a 5.83% increase. If you look at the list of departments, all the way down to the bottom, this is capital non-recurring. That's the taxes. That's the tax portion of the capital budget that we're going to be reviewing.
And what we heard, based on the requests that we heard, the total non-capital is 3.5 million.
Are you looking at this?
Oh, no, I'm
The
not.
BOS proposed.
One that says summary on it.
It's a summary one.
And then if you go all the way to here, at the bottom, capital, and then that's the one that we're first.
So what was requested is 3.5. What is now reflected in terms of what Tony and I are going to go over is the 2.0.
I think we're going to have a really hard time with this budget when it comes town meeting time. And I think it's related to some things that are unanticipated about all of the things that have happened this year. The reassessment. When I look at our grand list and I look at a 6%, 6% increase, which was more than we did last year. But I'm just looking at it and figuring the only way that math works for me is that I've got to assume that when we were told by our assessor that 60% was the average increase, but that was maybe on the percentages if you took everybody's percentage, but that particular percentage was not applied equally across the spectrum of homes. I would guess that anybody who had a $2 million home did not see a 60% increase. That they, based on how it's coming out, that they may have seen a 20% increase or something
Or
like
no
that.
increase at all.
Or no increase.
at all, a very small increase, yeah.
Right, which is, I've heard from a lot of people who have much, like 1/10 of that, who are seeing huge increases. And based on this particular mill rate, would see an additional $3,000 or $4,000 on their home.
Indeed.
And that seems to me to be very regressive in terms of its effect. It may have been the way to go when you look at the market, and maybe the people who are in the big homes with the high tax bracket, with the $2 million house or whatever, are going to pay 5 or 6% more. But usually, if your budget goes up 6%, you expect that your tax rates, the dollars you pay are gonna go up 6%
After this year, that would be the case, correct?
after this year. But this year,
It's,
we're gonna see a lot there. The wealthy homes, I'm absolutely certain, we're not up by 60%. Somewhere in the middle, between the homes that are free and the homes that are most expensive, we are squeezing a lot of people. And we're not talking about a small percentage of increase. We're talking 30, 40% increase in their tax dollars. Now,
I've been living this for quite some time. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I understand what
you understand what this
Oh, I
means.
completely understand what
So
you're
what I'm
saying.
seeing from this budget is that kind of increase may very well motivate a lot of what we've been trying to stop, which is we want our seniors to age in place.
Understand.
So,
With no increase at all.
what's that?
With no increase at all. A lot of what you just said.
It's still true,
It
yeah.
completely stays true.
Because of the way
Because of the market and the change in the market for the prices on the homes that have changed. A lot of the homes that have changed, and we went through type of homes, we went through locations of homes, we went through prices of homes. And there's nothing that you can say like it was the $2 million homes that were impacted or it was the $150,000 homes that were impacted or anything like that. It's really across the board. I will say a lot of the smaller homes, what I consider to be the smaller homes, the homes that were valued at $250,000 took a big hit. It took a big hit.
And those people are very likely to move or.
One of the things that we talked about in the budget, and we have in this budget, that we did include in this budget is, and we're talking to Nick specifically, he'll tell you when he's on, to see if there's any means by which we can increase or improve the abatement for the elderly in the town very specifically, because some of them are going to be impacted significantly, and I'd like to do something to try to mitigate that. We'd like to try to do something. So along the tax abatement standpoint, one of the things right now, on average, we were averaging about 130,000, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, it's recently it's gone. So in the ordinance, it allows up to 190,000, right? So I'm sorry, okay. Good question. Tax credits for income eligible households, senior households.
Yeah.
The ordinance allows for up to a total of $190,000 in the budget in credits. Lately, we were at 130, we dipped down to 100,000. Now it's up a little bit, but we're not close to 190 in terms of people actually getting these credits, because either there's not enough of them, they're not applying, or the credit's too low, or the income's too low. There's a number of ways to address that if you want to reach that.
To address the thresholds on the
There's two phases of that, Maria, two items associated with that. One, what we did is from the budget number, if I'm not mistaken, we put in.
I put back to 190. I used to budget lower because we didn't use it, so I would budget 130.
So this year, we put it up to the 190 very specifically because we'd like to maximize it if there's any opportunity.
190 being the amount that
That we give out tax credits to income eligible seniors.
is eligible, and eligibility comes in at.
It's, there's two tiers. There's the tier one, which is up to the state amount, which is in the $50,000 range, if I remember correctly. And then it's 1.5 times that, it's in the $70,000 range. It's household income.
And in our previous board, David Lover brought forward a plan that was to be more aggressive toward seniors for our town, because the vision was that aging in place was actually good for our town, both in the sense of seniors here. Mika, you've approached it with the idea that over 55 housing is the issue, but we haven't really achieved, other than the very expensive ones down in Toll Brothers, we haven't achieved that. We have achieved a point where we're probably going to push a lot of seniors over the edge, I would think, given the choice between going to Florida, selling your house at what apparently is market rate now, taking your money down to Florida and paying $3,000 a year for your taxes, and having a very, very nice place to live in. versus staying here and paying, an extra $5,000 or $4,000 in their taxes. And so I kind of think that the reason it was being addressed by David's proposal was that if we kept for every senior who stayed in their 4-bedroom or 3-bedroom home that chose to stay in Woodbridge, we would save possibly $40,000 or $60,000, depending on the number of children who moved in to go into the Amity system. And the proposal was pretty simple. It was just like, okay, freeze their taxes at where they are right now, and then they know. That way, if they are on a fixed income, they will know what their taxes are going to be. And there will be a cost to us, because like this year, instead of their taxes going up several $1,000s, it would have been the same. And we would have had to make up, as a town, the rest of us would have had to make that up. But what we wouldn't see is 10 seniors moving out and 40 kids moving in, and which would have a hugely negative impact on our future budgets, because 40 kids moving in at $20,000 a kid into the high school is going to be a lot of money for us. So I'm apologetic that I didn't foresee that this was going to happen as a result of the assessment. But it's been, as I've done the math and I've looked at this and I looked at the proposed budget, I realized that it doesn't matter how, if you didn't go up at all, we would still be shifting the cost. If we had the same budget, we would be shifting the cost onto that population, whoever it is. I don't even know who it is, because I'm not the assessor. I didn't do that stuff. But I do know, I've heard from a lot of people who said, wow, my taxes are double, or I'm going way up. And
chances are, they won't double. And
but
yes, it's something. I guess I realized it's way before you did.
You did.
Which is the reason that we looked at some possibilities. The only issue I have with what Dr. Lober projected or proposed, from what I knew of it, obviously we haven't proposed or looked at anything along those lines, but that was regardless of your income.
Yeah.
There are a number of seniors in town who will stay in town if they want to stay in town, and who will move if they want to move. And it has nothing to do with the taxes they're paying.
It doesn't have anything to do with the taxes, but this is not a small difference.
Which is the reason that I specifically
looked
for whatever we had available to us, considering this information is what we sold.
May I ask the question?
Please.
And then I do think there's room, and I appreciate the work you've done to reduce the request to what you presented to us tonight to discuss. I think we can I think there's opportunity to reduce that even more, and in the context of what's being discussed, that's where we should probably focus our efforts here tonight. But you have said a couple times, Mika, that you did the mental exercise of if the taxes went up 0%, what the impact would be. Do you have that number? If the taxes, if it's 0%, what would our, considering the updated grand list, what would our town's mill rate be?
About 30.
Oh, it's about 30.
30, yeah.
That's what it would be.
Yeah.
I'll just note to sort of cap that off, one of the things, David, that we'll talk about in ordinance, because Mika had brought this, is we have the tax credit ordinance as it exists limits that abatement to 190,000, but we could adjust that in ordinance, so that could come up at our next Board of Selectmen meeting. It's one of the reasons why we're having an ordinance meeting next week,
Yeah.
because we could talk
You
about
can hear now?
And I think addressing seniors is, obviously it's a priority, and we're all as a board on the same page with that. And as a young person raising kids in this town, I also need homage to be paid to sustaining those that are trying. The economy isn't what it was for young parents now as it was a generation ago. It's harder, and we should be doing things to make it easier for everybody to live here. Understanding the caveat of prioritizing seniors for many reasons, but there has to be room for everybody to to flourish.
We're also moving that burden to exactly the group you're talking about. When we increase the money we're putting aside for senior
Yeah.
tax stabilization, which I think I'm in favor of this, and I'm interested to hear how it gets through ordinance. But I think I also understand that, Tony, you've already worked that in only, so the number that changes in the BOS proposed budget tax calculation sheet
Right.
shows us that number.
Correct. So that's currently at 190.
So we would be setting the stage for something that still has to get through ordinance. And
Or it could be,
depending
or
on
if ordinance makes a change, it could be adjusted later in the process. Or
So
the
we'll still
finance
have a
can
little
adjust
bit
it
of time. Okay,
at their meeting or after the annual hearing or whatever.
right.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great thing for us to be pursuing in a little bit more depth, but as long as we have some ability to adjust it
Make us
further.
I agree that we don't want to talk about this ad infinitum because it's a dead horse. But my point is not specifically about seniors, because this hit
Yeah.
lots of people, particularly down in the flats, the people that have talked to me about it, and you identified it as well, and they aren't seniors, and they wouldn't get a break. And the only reason I say it about seniors isn't because of the seniors, it's because of what happens to our town. Because seniors who are sitting there right now saying, wow, I need to downsize, and guess what? This 4-bedroom home just got really unaffordable. They may be able to afford it, they may not want to afford it, because usually you're the frog in the boiling water. You know, the temperature gets turned up a little bit and you don't jump out. But when the temperature goes from, cold to boiling, all of a sudden, you don't even go near it. And I think that we got to be ready for the fact that this may be a catalyst, because we don't control it. After this assessment, we don't really control it. There's nothing, I just feel badly that there's nothing we can do about it.
There's not after the assessment,
This is controlling the budget.
No.
But then it's on us to control the budget, like, we have to be
Budget, we have to-
particularly aggressive.
The way this is played out,
And really always.
past assessments did not do this. They just didn't.
No, they, of course, the 5 years ago, the house values went down, and believe me, I was there.
Yeah.
There was a number of people who called and complained that the town's not doing something right because the home values are going down. Now, our home values, the net value your net value in terms of your property has just increased significantly. But I totally understand. I did the calculations a long time ago, and the reason we've gotten to where we are is very specifically, if your house was up 100%, your taxes are going to increase substantially. They won't increase 100%. They could increase 30%. They could increase 40%, which is a lot of money for a lot of people. Okay?
A lot of people.
This is something that, but it's something we can't control. And I don't say that to displace or to dispel or to defer. It's something that every 5 years we have to do a revaluation. Period. That's the law.
Yep.
And we have to go by what the market bears.
Understood.
And the market is bearing what it's bearing. That's it. Believe me, my taxes are going up as well.
Everybody's taxes are
Right.
going up.
No, not everybody.
No, that's-
Because it's a redistribution of taxes. So people whose home values went like up under 20% are likely to have a tax reduction. They will pay less taxes even with this budget. They'll probably pay less taxes. Okay?
Well, to the extent that a lot of those people have very nice big homes, that's very unfortunate, because it exaggerates
The reason
the
they give
regressive
is
nature of
because-
tax.
And one of the reasons is, and this is from the assessment, the assessor, and from the consultants, and from talking to others, is generally because they were probably overtaxed previously. So if your
Well, no,
house
they
did
were-
not go up significantly with this new market, it's because your house was valued higher than what the previous market should be. I'm just telling you what the information that we've been provided. So,
I would say that you're maybe on the right track, but it's not that they were over-assessed previously. They were assessed at market rate. And everybody's now assessed at market rate. And if market rate didn't go up for the $2 million houses, bravo. But nobody gets anything out of a change in somebody putting a price tag on your house until you sell it.
Totally agree.
And the people who have the most money and are most content and love our town are very unlikely to move if they can afford to stay here because they like it and everything else. And they are the people who are most likely to be able to afford it. And, so many of us are in the position of being able to afford it. That's very nice. But the people who realize that their house is worth a lot and they feel like, yeah, this is too much, those are what we're telling to go. And then
We're not telling them to go, David. The market is indicating that this
They
is what
should.
it is. It's not where, and it's an important thing to say because we're not telling, what we need to do, you want to be aggressive on the budget, that's what we control. We can do that. What we're presenting you here is not necessarily what me and Tony would have said. There were other things we were going to take out, and I said, you know what? Let the board.
Okay.
Let the board look at it.
So here's the thing, and I believe that you are on top of this and know what's happening, and I'm just slow to the gate, slow out of the gate. Knowing that it was happening, I would have preferred that you went to all these people and said, you better come back with zero budget on us, because we're gonna get killed on this, and it's gonna change our town, because I think that's what's gonna happen. But let's go ahead and have a real discussion.
David, the increase, even the increase we're talking about adds
I know,
about
as you said,
6%.
exactly what you said.
So if my taxes were gonna go up 35%, if that's what my taxes are going up, this budget will be 2 or 3% of that.
I know that, I know that.
Okay?
I know that. But knowing it in advance, we should do everything we can.
It all adds up, and it all adds up every year. 2 or 3% we could have shaved off last year, would have been, it just,
And understanding that a 0% budget means a budget cut. So if we're prepared to cut programs, and we're prepared to do that and cut people, that's what it's gonna take. Because you can't do 0% without cutting. Like, and when I say cuts, it's gotta be program cuts, it's gotta be personnel cuts. And then, because we have very specifically, we have to pay
We have to pay the increases in the contract.
Our costs of goods have gone up just like everyone else's costs have gone up. So you're talking about 2.5% for labor, you're talking about another 3% for inflation on different things.
Yeah.
So without doing anything, obviously we need more money. We don't have any additional sources. The only place we get money is from our taxpayers. And our grand list has stayed flat in terms of our overall grand list has stayed flat, so we haven't had growth. We haven't had any additional revenues coming from any different additional locations. So if we want to do that, have at it. Let's go. Let's do it.
I agree with you. I'm just saying that, and the assessment is required, and I'm not arguing that we can do anything about it. I'm just saying that, 5%, and, for the last 5 years, people are willing to pay 5%.
And I think we can get there again or below.
No, we can't, we're, whatever. But
Let's get there. Let's
So
get
I
there.
just want to make a couple points.
yeah,
There's a sheet I sent to you which has expenditure increase by category. So it just gives you an idea of the expenditure increases by each subgroup. And what I want to bring to your attention is that if you go by the tax amount to be raised in taxes, the amount that the town has to raise in tax revenue to balance the budget is up 6.3%. If you want to get below 5%, it's $700,000, which gives you a framework. If you want to get below 3%, it's $1.75 million. That's how much you'd have to take out of the budget in order to get to those thresholds. Just sort of gives you a framework for the types of decisions that you may have to make depending on where you want to be. If you want to be at zero, it's $3.3 million. So,
you said 1.5 million for below 3%?
1.75 million. It becomes even more difficult if if you say you don't want to take it out of either the school budgets and you want to just take it out of the town budget, then that becomes even more difficult.
Tony, can I ask you a question about the school budgets? Are we able to give them a bottom line number to
Yeah.
say we just want
You
it
can.
to go down a 0.25% or half,
Absolutely.
whatever?
Yes,
We can do that without pointing
you
out
could.
and just kind of give it back to the Board of Ed to say,
They have to figure it out.
Right.
Only for this feature budget,
For
obviously
feature.
for the Amity budget.
Right,
Or at the, whatever
Um,
happens at the vote.
And
Well,
then,
that's a problem.
with regard to Amity, is this, when do we lock in the Amity number? Because I know they're still talking.
So we keep following their budget process
Right.
until we get to,
There's one?
right after the budget hearing. And whatever their budget number is after the budget hearing, that's what we lock
Then
in.
we can adjust. And then it goes to referendum, and we either pass it or
Right,
fails.
and then, right.
And we can't adjust, even if it doesn't pass in
Right.
the Amity budget and they cut it, we still have. our
Unless you
tax-
have a quorum at the town meeting, then the quorum at the town meeting.
This goes beyond, like, we need to update our charter to have it vote on our budget. Like, we're one of what, 2 municipalities in the whole state? Are we the
There's
only?
another, actually, the town meeting form of government, I think, is still the most prevalent form of government in the state.
Yes, but I mean, most the vast majority, like over 90%
No,
of
again,
municipalities.
I think the
in
most
Connecticut.
municipalities have the form of government that we have, the town meeting form of government.
But-
Now, they may have referendum.
But where they
change
vote
it.
on it.
I don't know.
I
They
do, yeah,
vote on
I'm
their
saying
budget.
that
I
they
don't know.
vote on their budget, most municipalities.
Having a town meeting and
That's a
voting.
question, since we do have the attorney
Yeah.
here, can we throw that question to the town attorney?
Can always count on you to kick a question to me, Sheila.
There you go. Itch it away.
So, this is not the simplest thing to answer because there's different permutations to the town meeting form of government. Most of the smaller towns that I represent still use a town meeting form of government. But yeah, it depends on the specific language in each charter as to what constitutes a quorum of an in-person town meeting sufficient to actually hold the vote with the folks who actually show up if a quorum is met. That's not unusual. Some of my other towns that have this town meeting form of government do have these kind of quirky, what constitutes a quorum, and the numbers are different for each town. So I wouldn't say that we are clearly different than a lot of municipalities. But yeah, oftentimes there is not a quorum when folks come into a noticed town meeting, and that necessarily under these other municipalities' charter provisions triggers an immediate removal to a machine vote that obviously implicates the whole populace. So,
And we don't have that provision in our charter to go to a town vote, to a machine vote.
I don't know that off the top of my head.
Nick, with those other towns, having a town meeting versus having a machine vote on your budget, you could have a town meeting but still have a referendum vote, correct?
Yes.
And what I'm assuming is that a lot of people that have town meetings don't do their budget there. They do it in a referendum. Is that true or not?
For the most part, in my experience, that's true. There's a recent example that I could think of over the past year or two in another smaller town meeting form of government, where for the first time in many years a quorum was met, and it seemed like there was some workings amongst the public and the residents to actually show up so that there was a quorum that then triggered the provisions of the charter that allowed for amendments from the floor of that town meeting. So that has transpired and it can transpire, but yeah, for the most part, it just gets removed, it gets pushed to a full machine vote. But I'm trying to pull up our charter right now to see exactly what it says, but
I've already talked to Nick and Birch and Moses about charter revision.
Yeah.
That's something that's down the road a little bit.
Yeah, it is.
So it's something that we can certainly
It's
bring up and
expensive.
discuss, but I think right now we need to start.
If we
talking about
lose,
the budget.
if the budget gets rejected, or if there is a town meeting where our budget gets rejected, our process requires us to go through line item by line item, which would take
All night, which we've been training for since January, guys.
You got us ready, Ted.
All right, let's get into it, shall we?
Yeah.
What we need to do is focus on the budget and,
Yeah.
and let's take these things up as matters that we need to consider going forward.
Okay, so should we go for capital? We pulled the 5-year, the 6-year, excuse me, capital plan. I'll go over some of the adjustments that we made, and then we can go from there. Just to orient you to the document, the 2026 year, this is department request, and then this is Board of Selectmen recommendation. The Board of Selectmen recommendation column is the column that would be funded in the budget. The bold items are typically the ones that are funded. If it's not bold, or it has like a letter next to it, it gives you a sort of a, it's like a key to what the funding is for that particular item. And I can go through each one as we go. So if you go to Board of Education, clearly with a large project being discussed, we didn't feel it was appropriate at this time to fund any of these capital items, except for the playground. That was his thought there.
So Tony, quick question, it's a bold number, which means pay as you go?
Correct.
Okay. And then I guess I have to ask, from some of the schematics we saw, that playground doesn't exist anymore.
So that you could certainly remove that as well, if you
And
feel that's
just wait a
necessary.
year and maybe patch it.
The reason for that was it seemed to be, seems to be some damage to it.
Right, but if it's going to be totally removed 3 years from now, just patch it to get us from point A to point B. So it's just one potential, and
That's what the $21,000 is for, no?
It's to replace the rubber board
we're going to
surface.
do the whole.
The entire surface?
Right.
We can either go department by department, or I can just go through the whole budget, however you prefer.
I think going by department works.
Yeah.
We just go through
Yeah,
the
yeah.
document this way.
Next one is Board of Selectmen, and basically we've done a few things here. First is we've moved up the demolition 1 year. You'll see that's not bolded. That has 3 next to it, which with 3 on our key is something that would be bonded. So that's just in a 6-year capital plan. If you want to also show, I don't know what you're going to say. Just-
We gotta go back.
yeah, I understand. But you have to also show what your obligations are for borrowing, as well as pay-as-you-go, because it's supposed to be a 6-year snapshot of all of your obligations. Clearly, or possible financial obligations, clearly there's something missing from the department previous to this, which you should probably discuss.
We do need
Discuss that
that,
now?
yes, before we move forward from the Board of Education.
Yep. I think you should consider.
Mika, what do you think, I mean, looking at the Board of Ed, and did we move that $20,000 out? Because it would be better to patch it if we're going to, and then if we're going to have a referendum about what we just saw earlier on Beecher, when is that referendum going to happen? Because if we go to Amity referendum, which is obviously going to, the Amity school referendum will pass because we're the only ones taking a big hit on it. So, Orange is going to be happy as it could be, and so is Bethany. So we're going to be paying for the problem there. Are we going to be able to get a referendum through after bad news and after all the bad news?
Referendum will probably happen in, like we were talking about, the September, October timeframe, it'll probably happen toward the end of 2025, if that's your question.
The referendum they're talking about to go
Beecher Road, for the Beecher, yes.
Beecher to get
Yes,
in line for their grant.
yes.
And that would probably be
sometime the end of this year.
It's got to be scheduled before the June 30 application, so that date has to be set. The referendum doesn't have to happen before June 30, but it has to be set, and it needs to be set before the November election.
Correct.
So sometime between June 30th and November.
Yeah,
So we would know we would need a dollar amount in order to set a referendum date.
Yes, we would, and we would get that, that's what they're gonna
That
get.
dollar
Yeah.
amount would come in time for the April setting where we have to make, that's the last chance we have to make an adjustment.
We feel we should put a dollar amount in here that's significant
For this 6-year snapshot.
for the 6-year
Because we
snapshot.
envision the cost.
Correct.
So what cost do we envision?
That's what we wanted to talk
So we didn't get numbers
We didn't get
tonight.
We didn't get any numbers, but we
Yeah.
did get a number. We got a $650 number
Per
per
square
square foot times 130,000 square feet, which comes out to be about $84 million. 32%, take 30% off of that, or 32% off of that, and you're talking about $54 million.
So
That's for a
That's
brand new building.
That's for
No,
brand new.
no, I thought he said
And less.
65 was, 650 per square foot was for renovation.
That's renovation.
He said that was renovated.
Renovation new. And
Renovation new.
And I will
not new
tell
building.
you that when we looked at all of this in that time frame when we were doing the 2015 project, we started with a new building, 60. So now it's 80. That's the escalation. It's the exact same problem we dealt with 15 years ago.
I wish you'd have built a new building.
No, we decided at that time that we could not throw away all the recent modifications and everything that was already existing. You will always have this same problem.
Yeah, we're-
My
You will
sense
never
is
be able to
that,
throw
for
away.
purposes of our discussion, that we should put a $40 million, I'm gonna just throw a number out for a placeholder, $40 or $50 million numbers in 29 or 30, so that there's something on
Okay.
for the Beecher Road project,
Okay,
okay? And it's a bonded number, so it doesn't affect our budget now at all, obviously.
Yep.
But it's something that, from a look standpoint, we should have that in here.
And take out all the other numbers.
Correct. Take out all the other.
So what's the
numbers.
impact?
It's not anything on it.
Well, there'd be no impact
no
on
impact
this
at all on
year.
our budget.
because-
No, I'm saying if you take out all the piecemeal projects that are here and replace it with one number further out, and some of these, we have a lot in 2027. Do we have a sense of what we're talking about?
About $461,000, $461,304. Or if you take them all out to 31, it's $870,564.
All right, so for the sake of illustrating further, go down to the Board of Selectmen set, and we have the police department
Mhm.
and the center building,
Mhm.
and both of those need numbers, just like Beecher does.
So we put those in there.
yeah, they're in there.
Right, are we, is that the total, we think, for the center building?
Well, we're doing it in phases.
Yeah.
So we're going from, that was 41 last year, and we're going down to
Well,
10.
Well, the 41 included
Police
renovating
station.
part of it as a police station, and that would,
So does this 18 mil
But that may not-
28 instead of 41.
consider being a separate building, a
Yes.
new building?
And that's based on projections that we understand from Silver Petroselli, who just built one in North Branford, about the same size as.
It was about 15 million in North Branford, so we escalated a little bit because it's a few years.
Okay. But we haven't gotten that report back yet, right?
We haven't done the report, that's the $50,000 that's in there.
Okay.
Right, that's the 50,000 that's in there, that's that.
And you're putting that in the same year as the Beecher project.
We
So
didn't
that was-
decide what year to put the beach project.
I thought you said 29.
Well, I said 29 or 30, but, yeah, I said 29 or 30.
Okay. So now, I guess, impact on our total debt, right? 'Cause we
So
can't
what- if
go-
you put that in here, then what I can do is use that to put together a debt profile. So you'll see what your debt service will be like if you approve all these projects.
But by putting them
Just for
in,
planning purposes.
For planning, yeah.
yeah, it's not
It's just
committing
planning.
us to.
All this is planning, it doesn't commit you to anything.
Let's, yeah,
But it helps for planning.
For-
So that you
which
can't
is
say, oh, let's
important.
do this, let's do that, let's do this, until you see how much you're going to be paying in debt service.
Yeah, and I think the more we bond, the better we are to do it together. So we should be trying to, if we're bonding for beach, or do it at the same time, or bonding for police, to reduce expenses associated with that,
On the
correct?
set
Well,
referendum.
Yeah,
The flip side of that is, if you do them at the same time, the debt service will hit at the same time. We want to smooth it out so that,
But doesn't it save us money?
yeah, it's negligible if you're borrowing $20 million.
Okay.
You save the application?
It's
fees and
the,
stuff like that,
bond counsel and the financial advisor and gradings report and all that stuff.
which are in the
Sounds
thousands as opposed to.
All total, it's about $60,000, $70,000.
So
It's not much
Tony,
if
you
you're borrowing $18 million, but if you're borrowing $1 million, it is.
Right, so you could model for us a couple different options of school in 29,
Right.
police in 30, police in 28.
But they're saying the
school in
school's not gonna
30.
be done till, what,
It
2030?
didn't Sound like it was
Something
further
like that.
out. yeah.
So it's like 3 years out.
Yes. So they'll model out something.
So you would do that based on our conversations tonight, and then
And when you have a meeting to discuss the referendum, to show what that's gonna look like.
Because we'll have numbers at that.
absolutely.
Yeah,
So,
we'll have the details.
That was part of the last pitch.
Right,
So
we did it the last time.
the point of our discussion here is about putting a number in for Beecher.
The last project we did, we paid off the old project and we added the new project. So it was seamless.
Right.
There was no impact.
35 is the year that happened.
Right,
We're close.
right.
so, I think we're in agreement to add that to the plan for Beecher.
Okay.
Maria, any thoughts on when we should do it? 'Cause I'm
When
just-
we should
When we
do.
should
When we should put
in the
that.
capital.
I defer to Tony in that, as far as what the timeline goes, because when construction starts, when bonding happens,
We do bond anticipation.
right.
Yeah, I would say probably 20, I'd say 28 or 29 is fine.
And Tony, is that why, not to jump around, but is this why the $1 million bonded for the country club demolition is for this fiscal year, because you're trying to stagger these bonds? Like, so you were considering that 1 million in the context of Beecher? Because in my mind, and to the point you just said, where a $60,000 bond cost is significant for $1 million.
It is.
So, and I was gonna come into this discussion saying, let's take that out for 2026.
$1 million?
Yeah.
You could move that
Because
around.
we're
It's
in
just-
the planning phase right
The
now.
only thing with the demolition of the country club was just sort of highlight the urgency in that facility is a huge liability.
It is, and I campaigned on that, so like I'm very keenly
whacked out.
aware. And I don't want us, we don't have money, so, and we're planning for it. So shouldn't we wait to see, maybe that cost could
We've been
be
doing
on
that for
the
years.
buyer.
We've been doing that for years, and it could, you're absolutely right.
Like, we might not need to bond
Could be.
that $1 million.
You could be right.
In the year we're
Not at that cost.
It's not, yeah, when we're struggling in this year, to me, that looked like some low-hanging fruit that could be.
That doesn't
It will
affect
impact the tax
this
rate.
budget.
That
It doesn't affect anything that we're talking about in terms of the budget. My
Okay,
sense is the reason we want to do that is because it's a liability, it's dangerous, and it's something that we've put off for a considerable amount of time. It's an eyesore, and we still need to identify from a remediation standpoint exactly what's implicated with that.
yeah,
And we're gonna have to do that before somebody buys the property, is my sense. You're not, if that piece of the property is being looked at to do anything with it all,
yeah.
you're going to have to make that happen.
Can you help me to understand, and maybe the people would appreciate this as well, how bonding impacts our budget? Because wouldn't the $60,000 be from our budget?
So the $60,000,
fees?
no, the $60,000 is part of the million. So you amortize the cost of the issuance of the bonds over the 20 years, along with the cost of the project.
So it's
And there's
reflected.
still a monthly payment that you're gonna, or an
Yeah,
annual
I
payment.
don't
that you
understand
make.
how
That's
it
part of your
doesn't
budget.
affect our
It does, but
budget.
it's in the form of debt service.
If you look at Tony's summary again, if you go back to Tony's summary, there's a debt service one.
Yeah,
Correct,
That number goes up.
correct.
So that the impact, if we were to push it off and say it's not happening next year, is that debt service.
I didn't put it in that either.
but that debt
So we don't need to
service
say anything?
No.
goes into our the map. I don't, like if you're considering debt service an expenditure,
Right.
I don't understand how that does not affect our budget and our taxes.
Because when I did the debt service for next year's budget, I didn't include this $1 million because I didn't think that it would be any likelihood that it would be
Okay,
approved and borrowed and all that stuff in
okay.
time for the budget.
But in theory,
Because when
if
you
I'm,
borrow, when you issue bonds, you pay an interest payment after 6 months, you don't pay your first principal payment for a year after you issue bonds.
okay. I just really don't want people to walk away from this thinking
That we're $1 million in there for that.
or that bonding doesn't impact our tax base, because it
It does.
does.
Absolutely it does.
Yeah, okay.
Under debt service.
Under debt
Debt
service.
service, yeah.
But
But it
you're
won't
saying
impact
this
this
million is not reflected for, even though I'm seeing it
Not.
here for
It's
26?
not. We just put in there as illustrative of an obligation that you may have. And so.
In 2026.
Right, in 2026.
Does it constrain us
You
if
could-
we do move it out a year?
No.
We could
It's just,
still
you
decide to go out
can
to
move this
bond?
out a year or two and still next month say, I think we should do a referendum on demolition of the country club. But it doesn't tie into anything. It's just strictly for planning purposes only.
But then again,
So I would think we should push it.
but why? That's, my question becomes,
Well, we're,
if this is something that we're considering that we need to get done, why would we not demonstrate that why would we not put it there and show exactly what we're
Well, then
trying
we
to do?
should put it all the way there and put the costs to
But it's,
the debt.
but the only cost that would come in if we're billed in the amount of time, if we're billed before June of 2026, we would put in the interest payment.
Correct.
That's
It
next
would be
year.
the most.
Next year would be.
I am holding hope that someone else will take on this cost.
Right.
That we don't have
Which is
to.
why.
That is my primary reason why I would not put this in right
And my
now.
feeling is that if something happens there, it costs us a heck of a lot more than what we're putting in there to get rid of it.
Well, I understand that.
And that's a concern. And at some point in time,
Is
it
there,
seems to me it's a responsible thing to do. It's been there for 5 years, with beyond repair.
But we're not,
Been there for
Well,
Yeah.
5 years ago, maybe we could have done something, I don't know. 8 years ago, maybe
We
we could
certainly could
have
have,
done something with it,
but
but
this is not
at this point now, absolutely
That was
can't do anything with
bad.
it, and something really bad could happen. Let's plan to fix that. And if that's what we're going to plan to do, let the public know, let's be straight about it.
well,
I understand
think
what you're
maybe
saying.
Then
I
it could, maybe it would be a good thing to bring to a referendum then. Let's see what the public thinks. If it's worth us
Absolutely, I agree.
getting ahead of it for their safety, or,
And in the meantime, after 6 months of working with the consultant, we might find out that there's a developer or there's a
right,
different plan that's gonna happen and it could change everything. We still have the opportunity to deal with that.
yes.
But my sense is if we don't, we're gonna do it anyway.
Do we have the cost of how many referendums we're gonna run this year?
Because that's
How much does it
like
cost to run?
roughly
a
$10,000
referendum?
to $15,000 per
That
referendum,
much?
and
I thought
that's,
it was like three.
that's
Just some mailings
Sorry.
out.
it's free if you do the canvassing.
So,
plus the new machines, then the ballots you gotta order, it's a lot.
let's just, because
Yeah.
we'll keep things moving.
Just curious.
Do we wanna put in 2029 or 2030, the $50 million number there?
For
Or
beach.
$40 million.
Future
For
metro
beach.
traffic.
Yeah,
50's probably right. I would-
28 or 29,
28 or 29?
right?
28.
You could
28.
always get
15,
pushed
28.
back.
Yep.
What I was hearing was that the earliest they could get going would be, the earliest it could be would be,
Middle of 26.
yeah,
27.
middle of 27,
Yeah.
before they would have anything ready to go.
First shove,
This is
first
just
shove, first
illustrative, again, this is just illustrative of
Right.
the obligation. What we most likely would probably do in that case is issue cash flow, bonds based on cash flow. Year one, probably 10 million to get the project started. Year two, because you can't borrow too much at once if you haven't spent it, you have an arbitrage issue. So
So if you want to pick 1 year, pick 29.
so, yeah, that's how we do it.
29?
29, yeah.
Okay.
Are we going through and making the changes now? Like, are we taking out the 21,260 for the playground? Are we?
So
did we
we're
decide
taking
on that?
notes on what you're, and then at the end, we'll state them all, and then you can
Okay.
vote.
Okay.
I would advocate for keeping the 20, I mean, we're a few years from doing anything there, and that's a small amount to fix a playground.
But that's
The reason we
great.
kept in is because by the
Yeah, that's
time they get
pretty
to removing that playground, it could be 3 years.
That's-
So,
Well,
but it's okay.
if our concern is that we need it done now, then 3 years when in year 4 they're gonna rip it up, that doesn't make sense. So I think emergency patching it, not for this dollar amount, but in their maintenance line. And that's one way of saying that, you know, we think the project has to happen, but we prefer you try to find that in your maintenance, patch it in your maintenance. So the hole where the spot is in place. The holes in them.
It's really nice. See people on that particular height before.
So Tony, you're also going to take out all the other out years on the other projects?
Yes. Okay. Whatever you want to do.
If it's okay with everyone here, what I'm suggesting to Tony, we do need to vote on this as we, whatever we decide on, so if we feel comfortable, we could either do it by department, each thing we're talking about, or we can do like the first page and vote on it.
Or the whole thing.
Or the whole thing.
But just capital,
Right.
right now.
For now.
Right, just now it's just.
For
I
now,
think we
it's
should
just
try to
that.
do one vote for the whole capital budget once we get through it.
Okay, then
So
let's
maybe
let's
go
Okay,
let's get
so, okay, let's continue then. If we go to building maintenance, so the thought on building maintenance was, and after discussing this with Brad in more detail, there was not a lot of significant research done on the $150,000 figure, as each building, the water intrusion issue needs some professional assistance to determine where the leak is coming from, how much it's going to cost, what the remedy is, and so he was just sort of put, you know, those dollars in there just to sort of establish the project, but in fact we need some professional assistance before we, you know, do each of those. So that's what the reduction was for.
I also noticed the dehumidification.
Right, remove that from the
Was
human
moved.
services, correct?
That was an item that I feel like we don't necessarily need to fund this year. I don't know, I didn't hear any reports of damage or imminent concern. I feel like a lot of money has been put into human services lately, and maybe this could give us a break.
There was a humidity problem in the center last year, in terms of, that's the problem. They're air conditioning, but it's wet.
But is that leading to mold, is that leading to an issue? Because that mold wasn't brought up, respiratory issues weren't brought up. It sounded more just like a comfort/discomfort thing, which I'm not trying to belittle,
I
but
think it's an energy expenditure.
But I think it's really important that we address, especially if we're talking about renovations elsewhere, right? I want people to be assured that the money we put in here and the system is functioning as advertised. So I don't know that it's 20,000. There may be some adjustments that can be made to the building management system that solves the problem. No capital expenditure, just
Brad has been through this in terms of, this is very much based on them having spent a year trying to mitigate.
So
the
was it
issue.
designed wrong, and should we
Yes.
be going back?
Yes.
Okay,
So what-
maybe we need a
can't.
lawsuit?
It
Like
was-
what?
so frustrating. So much was put in, and to have to now
Well,
spend
it's more
taxpayer.
upsetting to hear that the project we just did and we thought was spec'd properly is not functioning. That's more upsetting than we need to make some adjustments in existing. The system is what we need, it just needs to be adjusted, but
We had a similar problem at the library because the system was bringing in unconditioned air. So when it's very humid outside,
it's the dampers.
brings in very humid air inside. So we spent some dollars to condition the air before it came in, and it resolved the issue.
Right, and we had some similar problems at Beecher. because
Similar problem at Beecher.
The dampers were just not timed
Right.
correctly.
So
So that could be that here?
Could be.
is
we
there
don't-
any real need
They have
to
to
do
get time.
this
Yeah,
fiscal
yeah,
year?
It's gonna
This is
happen.
a tough year. We have to make some people unhappy, unfortunately. Is this an immediate FY '26 need? Can it be pushed back to '27 and reconsidered then? Similarly, I have a question about bathroom repairs for the police department. I'm aware that needs to be done, and I'm aware the planning for the police department will take a long time. So, but is that a priority right here and now, especially as we are planning on doing work to that building? Or a new department building?
So
It's
can
a-
I ask a question first before we go on to
Yeah.
that one?
Sure.
So I would like to see the dehumidification problem, or the humidification problem solved, not pushing it out, but pulling it forward and trying to get it solved this year. Because I don't want anything
Okay.
happening this summer.
Okay.
So if
So we
we
can
take
remove
it
that
out,
from the
I would
budget.
pull it forward instead of pushing it out.
So find a way to pay for it this year.
Yeah,
Yeah, we can do that.
yeah.
And to a point brought up earlier, there's no way we can have the installer, go back and have, is there any liability?
It's operating as it was designed.
It's operating. So
But maybe a design tweak.
I think that as we are investing in some pretty significant capital projects, there needs to be better oversight or checks and balances for this type of work.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable.
That's a
Yeah,
separate
we've had
conversation.
that conversation with a number of people already,
Okay.
so it's
So
separate.
I don't know, and I'm not trying to name names, but I don't know who's responsible for that, but someone needs to pay closer attention.
So I think the message to taxpayers is we're taking it out because we're going to solve it sooner rather than later,
Okay.
if you all agree.
So we're finding it in this
If we
year's
have money,
budget.
do we
If
have
we
money
have
this
money.
year?
We're talking about both the Woodbridge Center dehumidification and the bathroom repair.
That was just for the dehumidification,
Yeah.
for the
Bathroom.
The bathroom needs repair in the holding cell.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's,
agree.
that's really what it's
So
all
we'll
about.
take out the $20,000. We go on to the next, was the fire commission.
Oh, no, I'm sorry, we're still at 15,000.
Can we find 15,000 this year too? I don't know, but
I'm not sure. Possibly.
I'm fine with this thing. I was just trying to clarify what was being asked to move
Yeah.
forward to this year. So if it's just the 20,000, that's fine. But I do think it's important to get it done now before it gets worse. And that would be my concern.
I see that
Pushing
logic
it later,
too.
it's like you don't want to create a problem by pushing it off.
Absolutely, and water is one of those things, but I also am trying to be like very, and I don't like being this way, especially as an elected official. But it is, we need to rein
That's
this
stuff.
in.
We already cut
I know you did.
$1.5
I know you
million,
did.
so
I know.
yes.
And I-
All I'm saying is that I agree with you.
Yeah,
It's a tough
I
year,
started
so-
this by
so
calling
it's a
and
tough year.
acknowledging and appreciating that act, Mika and
No, I
Tony.
appreciate
But we're
So
here to
yeah,
help.
fire commission is next.
Fire commission. Okay. So the fire commission has the engine 3, engine 9, the air packs, and the radio upgrade are all capital lease payments that we have to pay.
So those first four.
So those first 4 you cannot remove. So what we left were the HVAC fix, which, and the fire hose.
The HVAC fix is specifically addresses the issue that he's bringing up
They
in
can't
terms,
control the-
they can't control the temperature, which is
Right.
also something we've already indicated we want to see about getting it done this year. However, we need to pay for it because it needs to get done.
I could do that, I
So-
could take that out, we could pay that, I think we
Push it forward.
could. Yeah.
Yeah.
Push it forward.
Let's do.
For the HVAC?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
And that will be saving us money once it's.
On the operating budget.
Yeah.
Correct,
Yeah, let's start saving this money early.
correct,
Okay.
correct.
So what about
Is that a
the-
problem of the age of the building or the equipment that was in it?
It got zapped?
It's a little bit, yeah.
The microgrid wiped it out.
No, no,
That was just what Sean said.
Sean represented that the last microgrid surge.
no, because
He was
Correct me if I'm
basically,
wrong.
either he didn't know what he was saying or he was just lying to it.
let me go back to Sean and give him an opportunity to tell me that story, because from what I understand, we've done a number of microgrid tests that didn't affect the HVAC, and from what I understand, the HVAC was having problems prior to that.
That's correct.
Because if I remember correctly, he was having problems during the spring, whatever fest that they do in terms of the snowflake dance, or one of the events that they held there that I was at, where the temperature was going up and down.
Yeah, so my understanding is the building maintenance system is what was receiving
Mhm.
surges when the microgrid was being tested and failing and tested and failing. So that instability in the current damaged the system. That was
It's
just
like we
what
weren't-
I got from him.
Okay,
Yes.
I'll talk no more about it, but as I said, there were issues with that prior to
It's long-standing.
any microgrid type test. Microgrid has cost us money, make no mistake about
The
that.
microgrid's been failing since it was
So
installed.
was that just because, do we know why? Is it
That it's failing?
lowest bidder? I mean, not low.
That it's failing or what? No, the microgrid? that's-
No, the HVAC, I don't care about
Some
that.
advanced
No, it's-
technology
he's
that's not
saying,
working.
again, conversations that I've had,
Yeah.
it is 15 or 18 years old, the age of it is one of the reasons.
I can't understand this.
But
We gotta-
I'll talk to Sean, bottom line is, it needs to be fixed.
Let's,
Yeah, and we're trying to pull it forward. Right?
Correct.
That's what we decided. So I had a question about the vehicles, right? So you've got both of them out of here. What if one goes out of commission and we immediately need to replace it? Are we
We deal with it like we deal with anything that happens like that. We have to make a decision on how we have to pay for it if something happens.
Have we
They're
ever
both-
seemed to me that there
explored
was a little...
donations? Like, aren't there vehicle and boat donation services, for example? Like, or auctions? Like, do we need to be getting,
So this is a pretty complex vehicle, and if it, from what Sean
the
told us...
chief's car 21,
Yeah,
car
so
22?
as he's driving down the road answering a call and the sirens are going and the radio and everything is going and the entire system stops, his siren stops going, he's still going at the rate of speed he's going, right? So I'm just concerned that we've got a little bit of liability here if we continue. My understanding is they're experiencing failures and rolling, and we're going to wait another year before we address it. So that's a concern. I understand where you're coming from, Mika. If it suddenly fails and it has to be replaced, then we go to contingency, and that's what we do. Is that your sense of it?
It's a 6-year-old car with 60,000 miles on it. I understand that it could, if there's a problem with the electrical, then we should have the electrical checked and fixed. We don't have it, we do need to make some hard decisions right now, and this is one of those hard decisions. In terms of it, if it's not working to the degree that it's dangerous, that hasn't been expressed to me. I haven't heard that, and you heard, everyone here was at those meetings.
I didn't hear
If
that.
you've heard.
I heard, I heard, what she said is right. He said that the lights
I don't have it
were.
from any other
No,
source.
as I
Because the
said,
electric-
as I said,
Yeah.
if it's a danger, he didn't present it as if it was a dangerous situation. He said there were malfunctions.
All right, so we have time. If it needs to get changed, we'll go with what we have here. And if he gives you more information and you want to change it when we get further down the line, we do that.
We could, yeah, we could do that.
Let's do that.
We'll look out for vehicle donations.
I have definitely read something about it. I don't know if
Cars
they're
for kids.
emergency vehicles or for more people in need. But there are auctions, like, we just don't, I don't know. We spend so much money.
That's true.
Everything is expensive, but
Yeah, I mean, this.
So are we suggesting that we put the $70,000 back for the chief's vehicle? Is that what
No.
we're suggesting?
I'm
Sheila?
not-
No, I'm
Okay.
going with what you said, Mika, unless we get more information later down the road.
Thank you.
Human Services, we indicated earlier, we moved the dehumidification, which we discussed we're now taking out and funding this year. Information Systems, that's a...
Wait, I'm sorry, Tony,
Sure.
the 85,000.
Right, okay.
Why is that posted as 85 and not 15?
Because 85 is the total expenditure.
But it's not, oh, but we front it?
Yeah, right, you have to appropriate the total, then we get reimbursed.
So in the tax?
Tax is only 15.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
See, it's in the note, it says 15,000 from the general fund
Yeah,
budget.
yeah.
And 70 from the grant.
Yeah,
So
I just
the
don't, okay,
calculation at the bottom of the page is only 15.
thank you.
Yeah. Information Systems is a lease. When we did all these leases, the short-term rates were like 1%, 1.5%. They were so low. It made sense to do it at that time. No change to the library. No change to parks. In police, we removed the police vehicle.
And just for purposes of making sure we understand the parks vehicle, well, we haven't there, never mind.
Do we ever
The-
rent these vehicles?
I'm sorry?
Do we ever rent some, I mean, the parks vehicle can't have to have a lot of special radios or anything like all the others, does it? It's more expensive than
Trails.
No,
It's a truck, it's a
Pulls
different
it.
type of vehicle.
Is this
Make-
the
oh,
dump
because
truck?
this
Was
is-
this the dump truck?
This isn't a dump truck. This
Oh, that
is
was
the
the
one
dump truck.
pulls- This is the one that pulls all the landscaping equipment,
Oh, this
so it's a
isn't,
trailer.
okay.
This is a pickup.
This is like whatever.
They would,
Yeah, the one that- yeah, if I'm not
it gives less
mistaken.
years than-
Do you assume
Wouldn't, if
it's
we
the
bought a
big
used
one,
one,
right?
wouldn't we,
Yeah, that's
wouldn't that
not-
save us some,
I'm sorry.
save us money to buy a used one?
we could look into it.
Yeah, like we buy so many vehicles every year, or we get consistent requests. They all have a great purpose, I understand. Can we do it differently?
Yep.
That isn't as expensive.
Every vehicle has most of its depreciation in the first year, no matter what, right? I mean, it drops and then it starts sliding
Yeah,
down.
so you can't bond it. So pay as you go is,
But-
really our own
We would
house.
have to, for
Correct,
the bid
but-
process, because most of what we buy. comes
Used as opposed to new,
Ah, well.
So we would have to identify.
We have bought used in the past.
I mean, if we can find used, we can save some money after, I mean, we'd have to still budget.
Used,
We can look into it.
yeah, I'm not sure about lease, but we'll certainly look into it.
Police?
Police, we we removed one vehicle purchase, because we just bought one through ARC.
They've been getting 2 a year. And,
They requested
already-
2 a year, they don't always get 2 a year.
right, I'm sorry, thank you.
Last year I got one.
They got one, right?
And they got another one this year.
Right, we did that in November or December. We just,
Correct.
It's not our problem.
yeah.
Public Works?
Public Works, we removed $100,000 from Public Works equipment replacement and pushed it into the next year, to 175, it says they flip-flop the numbers. Because if you look at Warren's, his information, this is a reserve account where he's gonna buy the equipment in the third year. So we're just building up funds. You can certainly remove the whole thing and push it out. And that's certainly something you can do. If you look at his,
So you took 100 out,
right,
or we could zero it all the way.
yeah, I think he probably has something there for him. I mean, I'd leave a little in there. Do you have that sheet, Karen? Capital sheet?
The backup?
Yeah.
Do we need Dick?
You wanna let him go, so he can stop building?
Are we going to, can we,
I don't think we, I don't know.
what I'm thinking is we could just, and if he
We're
doesn't mind,
wondering
we
if your
text you, if we
precedents-
text you or call you if we need you, it seems superfluous for us to hold you here. You know, so,
Well, look, guys, it's only going under retainer, so it's not costing you anything, but yeah, by all means, I mean, I'm around tonight. If something comes up, Allison or someone can text me, I'm happy to rejoin.
I appreciate it. Is that okay with everyone? Everybody okay with that? So thanks, Nick, that'll work for us.
Okay?
I'll text you if I
I'm
need
not
you.
gonna say no to that, thanks, guys.
Okay.
Thanks,
Can I make a
Nick.
motion to cut off then?
So,
Good
Just
call.
keep that one handy at
Just to
all
keep
times.
us, yeah,
Anything interesting?
just to keep us engaged.
Saving electricity.
There you go.
Sign stuff.
Which is good.
10.
We take out another 75, part of that, and we're just removing.
So about 15,000 of it is for current purchase of capital equipment in the garage. The rest of it's for future purchase.
I'm sorry.
Of the $75,000,
60 is just.
60 is
Yeah.
banking, so you can remove 60 and his operations.
And just put it in the.
Put in the following year.
Okay, with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. Put the budget over.
No, we-
This year, the biggest impact.
I hope all these departments know that this is not an enjoyable experience. And to take things they're asking away, prevent that.
I think they're used to that.
Yeah.
Oh, we understand what we're trying to do.
Okay, we can go on.
Yes, please.
Recreation, we removed these panels.
There's a note here, 1-4 for the baseball diamond. Was that on there at one point and
Yeah,
taken out?
I took it out.
Okay. We want to move it to a year
Well, no,
out?
it was $250,000 for a baseball diamond. It's said in every single year. And every single year we take it out.
It's like almost like a game.
We didn't ask for it this year.
He did.
What's that?
We didn't mention it this year.
Yeah, he asked me to do it.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Very last thing is,
Was the last one?
It's definitely, every other town,
Yeah.
the entire
Oh.
universe.
I remember it from last year, but I
And
didn't.
it was $250,000 about 15 years ago when,
Yeah.
that probably cost $500,000.
but it, you know, his point
Oh,
is
so
made, he
that's
feels that.
Yeah,
Not an
no, absolutely.
We're not-
estimate. Oh, okay.
I understand his point.
Yeah.
Thomas Darlinghouse?
Thomas Darling House, so this is the full amount of the ice house and horse barn renovation was $109,300, and but it's 50% reimbursement grant if they get the grant.
So this assumes they get the grant and then we
Yeah.
are funding the other half.
Correct, because I think they applied for the grant,
Right, they apply for the grant. and then
not us,
they
which is why I would put it as a grant in here, because we don't actually get the grant.
Goes to them as
Right.
as the nonprofit.
Right.
Goes to them.
Correct,
But the town's matching it.
but the town provides the matching funds.
They're not matching it.
Right.
It's considered, obviously, it's not considered, it is.
But it's a town building, so we have to sign off on the grant paperwork as the owner, that we're, okay with the grant and the work.
We've run into that before,
The calendar.
because it's always a timing thing. When they come to us,
Right.
we can't guarantee that it'll be in next year's budget.
Right.
So if they come to us anytime after now,
Right.
for next year, it has to roll.
And that's exactly what did happen in the last budget. We took it out, we didn't include it in the last budget.
Yeah.
And so it's,
Yeah, so we got to do it now.
But then if
that's
they
the only
don't,
reason we said, that's the only reason it's there, so yes.
if they don't get the grant, then this money doesn't get expended.
Correct.
So, but that doesn't help on the tax front.
Right.
Because we're taxing.
That's the risk you
based
take.
on-
That's the risk you're taking by keeping it in there. Is if you don't get the grant, then.
But if they
you
do-
raise $55,000 in taxes from the.
Right. Well, if we took it out,
They couldn't even apply.
well, they couldn't
Not
apply. I mean, we could
apply.
still, do we have to show that the funds have been appropriated? I mean, there's different things.
Oh, they could if they used their own funds,
They
but
could
they
use their
wouldn't
own.
be able, we wouldn't be able to pay for it.
Well, what I guess I'm asking is, can we sign off on a grant approval without showing it in the budget? We can say, yes, we approve the application of this, and if it goes through, we can
But they're
approve
not.
it.
Do you remember we went through this with Jerry when he was town council?
It's separate, but Massaro is town property. We ask for approval for grants all the time. We don't ask for any funding back. It's a different situation, but all it is a landowner approval. Now, maybe this grant is different, but what they're asking for is landowner approval, not showing that the town is paying for anything. Now, in those cases, Massaro doesn't ask the town to pay for anything. In this case, I realize that Thomas Darwin
Not 100%
is,
The difference,
but
the difference is it the same thing with, do we own the barns, do we own the house, do we own everything that's on the Sorrow?
yes, you don't own the equipment, but the buildings, yes. So when we've done a town,
And in fact, you don't pay taxes taxes, right? Or
We
are,
pay we pay a
Personal.
yes, we pay a personal property tax or our stuff.
Oh.
Yes, there's some, but no,
Okay.
as a house, it's not I mean, I don't own a house.
It's not on the grand list.
But the building, my point is more for, maybe we don't need to tax on it.
But if they get
Well, if they get it, I
the
mean,
new, then we don't have the funds.
well, I guess that would be the question is how would we fund it if we did?
Yeah, not that much if we're gonna be.
It's too much.
Yeah.
We have to sign the paper as the owner.
Well, my point is that happens all the time
Tony,
through
wasn't that the one
Mazar.
where-
Right, Mazar,
It
We
needs
come to
certified
say-
resolution
Isn't
that's
this
super
in
clear
But
a
you
million
covered it
times
if we
over
don't
that they're
pay.
being done.
You
We don't ask for anything from the
Yeah,
town.
they always cover.
Right, well, this is one of the best companies.
I guess my point is, I don't know if their
It's the same
application
thing.
says the town is funding it.
Right.
But I understand they're asking.
Does this,
They have an understanding of this.
Sorry.
But my point is, I just don't know if their application needs to say that we're showing that we're funding it.
I don't think so.
That was my guess, because that's
I
my
don't think
experience
so.
with
Yeah,
with.
no, I don't believe it does. But we have to have the funds if they get it.
Sure.
Right. If you want to.
because this is the match amount
This is the
requested?
match.
I see.
So
Okay,
the
that's-
previous number, the request is for the full.
Right.
But,
I see.
and I'm not saying we should move it, but I was wondering, if it's possible to not tax on it, then create your own tax on it. I suppose if they don't get it, we can address other projects
Yeah,
that are needed.
or it could,
Yeah,
I mean, we're
they
pushing
do
other
raise,
projects
they do
out.
raise money and spend them.
No, of course, I know, I realize they do, but I'm much appreciated. And,
It-
but it
This
could
is,
go into the contingency, right? Or-
Sure, I mean, there's other projects that are gonna come up,
Yeah.
that are gonna come up, and that we've pushed out,
Yeah.
that we can address with these funds if they don't.
You could,
They don't get
correct.
it.
That's
So-
correct. You could certainly do that.
There's
Yeah.
gonna be other
Tony-
needing time and things.
If we don't spend all of our contingency in one fiscal year, can it be considered?
You can,
It's how we're gonna
you
fix
can
this.
prepay stuff,
Okay,
which we've done,
okay,
and we would probably do here.
okay,
But it's
Yeah.
after taxes. Your tax time, what we're doing now.
right.
So, but then we can save some money for what we're doing.
My suggestion is you work hard to reduce this budget and not rely on a contingency that may or may not be there.
Yeah, yeah,
And then if it is there, it'll be even less
yeah.
than
Right.
what you did.
Okay, thank you. I was,
Well, I'm fine with it staying as is, I just wanted to sort of clarify that.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we just pushed out the compactor container replacement to the other 2 years. That's another situation where he was, putting money aside for future expenditures, so we just pushed it to those 2 years. Obviously, if we have a crisis or a problem at the transfer station, we could fund it at that time.
Why is the number here 3.2 and the number in the summary 2.0?
Because 3.2 is the total expenditure. Then look below it.
Oh, 2.0.
2.0 is operating, that's the taxes.
In the grant.
190 is grant funds,
That's
that's
the $1 million
the $1 million for
budget.
the bond funds, right?
Thank you.
The grant funds is 100,000 for most of it, for the paving. There's
Mhm.
the 15,000 for the
Vehicle?
no, 60, what was it, 85, 70,000 for the vehicle, for the human services. 20 for the meeting room. That's the whole thing.
Is there a number we're at now? Did
So,
you know?
21,260. So I have 5 adjustments to the capital budget. Add $50 million in 2029 for the school, the bond funds. Remove the 21,260 from the playground. Remove the dehumidification and pay in 2025, $20,000. Remove $25,000 for the HVAC in the fire department and address that this year. And remove $60,000 for public works equipment and remove it to 2027. Those are the 5 adjustments I have. Do you have any others?
I'm sorry, Tony, did you say the HVAC as well for the fire commission?
Yes.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the changes as Tony
It's 126,260.
Do I have a second?
120.
76,260.
And that will be to the capital, these are
Capital,
changes to the
Just-
capital
just to
budget.
the capital,
Excellent, second. Okay.
yeah, David, second.
Yep,
Additional questions or comments?
Just ask what the new number is. He's calculating. Calculating. He doesn't have his spreadsheet with him.
I do, it's right in front of me.
Thank God he's got power.
1,957,580.
Any comments, questions?
Instead of the two.
All in favor?
Instead of the two, I'm sorry, instead of the
Yes.
283.
Instead of 2,083,840.
Okay, thank you.
I'll take that again, all in favor? Thank you. Motion carries. And we are getting into the operating budget. Let me know when you're ready to tell
We're
me.
looking at the 2026 line items, is that what we're talking about here? Or
We're looking at the 25-26 BOS proposed, hang on.
BOS proposed budget 26.
there's proposed revenues, proposed line items, proposed.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Proposed line items.
Look.
Line items, right? So, usually what we'll do is go through each department and just highlight some of the changes that were made. There are 2 changes to this budget.
We're on Board of Selectmen.
Board of Selectmen, I'm sorry, yeah. These are adds to the budget. The first is in part-time clerical, which is a $28,000 increase. That's for funding for a part-time person to assist with the community center.
to assist with the community center?
Yeah.
This is for a community center director to develop the programs and schedules that are required to make the building use.
And then the second item in litigation is to fund the charter revision.
100,000?
No, from
Sorry,
72 to
Tony,
100.
We needed to ask him a question.
The
72
legal
to 100.
fees, so it's accounting for more,
28,000.
for more cost, is that what you're saying?
Which number are we on, Tony?
Litigation, that's to fund the charter revision. An additional $28,000
Correct.
in addition, because it's separate from the retainer.
So do we know about timing?
We,
Charter?
yeah, we plan to put the commission in place, I'd say by the end of, or by the beginning of May, by our May meeting, or at our May meeting, and then they will probably work for about a year.
And the type of revisions being made is guided by the Board of Selectmen?
By who we select to be on the charter committee. We select a charter committee of about 9 or 10 members.
So we appoint,
Yes, we do.
So we set in motion a process that will not conclude by the end of our terms, and will conclude in the next.
That is correct.
Selectmen's terms. So I'm a little uncomfortable with that. And for the purpose of since it's not gonna get done in our terms, I would be comfortable putting that money into another budget instead of next year's budget. And I guess my only question for the attorney would be,
We just had considerable discussion on how important it was that we make adjustments to our charter.
well, I would like to understand what some of the potential adjustments might be before we impanel a charter revision group. So I would hope that we could pursue some of these ideas, have some discussion as a Board of Selectmen, and then impanel a group. But I don't think they're going to complete the work during our terms, so.
Well, this puts money aside to do this, and it
Yeah, and I would
could start.
put it into the following.
Well, it could start in January too, so, we could budget for it so that it could happen
So
whenever
half
the next
the
term
amount?
starts.
Half, you could do half, yeah.
I mean, I don't know how long it takes is the point, but
It's
we've
about
just
a
talked
year.
about, and it's come up
I mean,
previously, that's
I-
important to do, so budgeting for it.
And I
seems
like the
sensible
idea
to
of
do.
starting in January, because that's going to be the Board of Selectmen that would hopefully see it through as well. So if we put half of the amount in, because you can't spend a year's worth of money.
But you're
in
then
that.
going through, then you're going through a second, a
Budget.
second budget hearing, but you're going through a third election. With
No, I mean-
incorrect information.
So from start,
As
from
far as
the
the
Starts about a
day
year,
we
it takes about a
impanel.
year.
Okay,
to do
yeah.
it.
So
And
that
it's a
would be the
commission.
next Board of Selectmen's term. Yes, they would need at least 6 months of budget. We would be bridging over 2 budgets, the cost of charter revision, which seems reasonable. I'd prefer that we do
That
it.
makes sense to me. That seems like the sound approach.
I think we should be
Clarify what you're
exploring.
suggesting.
So explore from now until December what options we think that should be pursued, and then impanel in January with the new Board of Selectmen. There's 6 months worth of funding. They need to ensure the other 6 months to get to conclusion next December, not this December,
We
and
need to.
get it to
find
referendum and get
next
it passed in
November.
6 months.
If you're gonna do it, rather than waiting till December, I have no problem with what you're saying, except for the fact that you don't wanna go through another election cycle.
No, we only
knowing that a
get, we
month
get elected
away.
every 2 years though.
So you're saying another federal election cycle?
Correct.
So,
Well, that doesn't-
because-
That doesn't.
When does that
That
happen?
doesn't-
Yeah,
Does
so I
that
don't think
have to
it's
do
a-
that?
That's right.
I'm just thinking of
Yeah.
Board of Selectmen. The next Board of Selectmen should
More.
see it all the way.
Yeah.
We should put 6 months' worth of financing in so that next Board of Selection, we may all be on that next Board of Selection, I'm not saying we're not, but at least then it gets concluded in the term of that board.
So you're suggesting, so the number would be 86 instead of 100, so if we did half.
Well, no, it's not
What's
that
what's the
much.
point?
He's saying from the original
From the
request,
original.
it wouldn't go
The
up
expense.
20,000, it would go up 14.
Yeah.
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 Town council was the one who recommended that we get it started sooner rather than later. So I understand what you're saying, what we can do, no. What I can do is review with town council, and this is an item we can take up specifically at our 26th meeting. And
February?
February 26th meeting.
Can we
Because-
start with my suggestion and then add it back if we need to? at the
Yes.
end of the month?
By all means, yes, that's fine. What I'm saying is I don't think you need any money if you're going to do what you're suggesting. Because you're hiring a firm to conduct what needs to be done. If you're not gonna start it until January of 2027, then
26.
2026,
Yeah,
then,
that's when you
right,
engage, yeah.
We'll change this to
26, no, this is 26.
No.
It's 26.
Yeah, I'm
You
sorry.
need half.
Yeah, we need,
You have the funding.
You need half the money.
Yeah, from January to
if
June.
they bill us like half.
If they bill us. Well,
No,
Yeah,
no,
they'll bill us monthly as they work.
Normally do, so we just need that money 6 months worth of.
Right,
If it
so
takes a year.
14.
Got it, good.
we're fine.
Works for me.
Tony, you mentioned, well, I'd like to talk about this part-time clerical, and in your additions, correct me if I'm wrong, the line item 52,100, general professional services for 95,000 and change.
Right, that's the planner.
That's a town planner.
Yeah.
That is in addition, because that's not grant funded this year.
That's correct.
So,
Not to say we can't get grants for it, but we don't have grants for it.
yeah, I'd like to pause to talk about that.
Please.
And, because that's a heftier line item on the BOS budget. I expressed some initial thoughts about this when we first discussed this at a previous, budget meeting. To date, at least I, as a member of the Board of Selectmen, have not received any information about what this town planner is doing or would be proposed to be doing with this fiscal year with the 95,000. I don't understand its value, especially at a critical budget year like this. I also really question the specific entity with whom we're consulting. And it's not that I'm opposed to having a town planner's services, but I am opposed to this town planner and to us paying 95,000 this year.
Just to clarify,
I do
the
not-
town planner, a portion of it is 83,928.
Why am I saying,
Because there's other items in there. There's $6,000. There's an EAP, Employee Assistance Program. There's a bunch of items in there.
oh, lumped into general professional
There's just,
services?
there's
Okay,
general
that
public
actually,
estates.
it doesn't change how I feel, but
Yeah.
when I read this, I did think it was closer to 85, so
Yeah.
it's 83,
83,928.
9, okay. Thank you, Tony.
Okay.
To Andrea's point, what, from your perspective, Mika and Tony, what have they helped you with? What workload have they taken off of you, or what have they helped you do more efficiently?
They've been in contact with the businesses down in the business district. They are coordinating the activities, for example, Connecticut Main Street that we signed on for. They're helping with coordination of their efforts in terms of the full assessment of the business district to identify vacancies and things of that nature. Chris Sullivan consults with him on a regular basis. He provides assistance to the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. He provides us assistance with regards to different demographic type reports, like he did our POCD indicates, for example, that our school enrollment is declining. He provides the Woodbridge specific type information that we would want in terms of the demographics.
So is that information has that already, will it come to the Board of Selectmen or does it go right?
I haven't sent it to the Board of Selectmen, but certainly I can. It's certainly, I mean, they're deliverables, they're tangible reports, so
Yeah.
I'm happy to send them to the Board of Selectmen, that's not a problem. It's basically whatever we ask them for in terms of helping us make decisions as relates to economic development, zoning, and what's happening from a state perspective with guidelines as relates to housing in particular.
And can you clarify who the consultant is and what the...
Justin LaFontaine is our representative from Goldman York. We
Yes,
received
it's-
2 bids. One was from a company outside of Connecticut, and Goldman and York was a Connecticut company that we received a response to. And we selected Goldman and York because they were a Connecticut company.
Sure. I believe there to be some level of conflict of interest in Gorman and York and playing such a key role in liaising or supporting TP&Z and some of the other examples you provided. There's a connection to Gorman and York with OCA through staff. I don't think that's appropriate. I think there's a bias in their perception of our town that I don't feel comfortable supporting Gorman and York as our town planner. And I feel I would also like to hear from our EDC on how valuable they feel the support from LaFontaine has been If that's the role this person is playing, to support this level of funding at this time, I would want a greater understanding of the impact on the boards and commissions they're supporting.
To that end, or to piggyback off of that, what role would they have with regard to the new projects? Like, what role would they have in a beacher project, in a police project, in a center building project? Would they help us eliminate some planning charges on those projects? Would that be something that would be in their purview?
Or would it be better to bond for services?
Yes, in answer to your question, they could. That's the expertise that they have all that expertise, so yes, they provide town planning functionalities. Most towns have town planners. We used to have a town planner. We do not have a town planner. We've suffered as a result of that. We don't have anybody who's really looking long-term in terms of what we're doing. We have not had significant growth in terms of economic or otherwise. And a town planner is helpful in providing that exactly that.
So one of the things I said last year when we were doing this was, I expressed a hope that we have a backlog of projects. We have the POCD as one of the prime things that we needed the planning services. So get a planner in here on this basis. But look to move our state of planning to a place where we could hire someone and save some money. And have a person, as you're saying, if it's someone who's here in the town, who gets to know the town, who is an employee of the town. Yes, I know that then we take on the benefit side of it as well. But if it is a lower level person, because we've knocked out all these major planning things that we've gotten consulting work on. So I don't know if we're getting close to doing that, or we're still a million miles away from something like that transition. But I'd be very interested in us making that transition as soon as possible, so we have a staff person doing that work at a lower cost or a very similar cost, but we're making an investment in someone who's part of the town.
Yeah.
Or if you do go that route and that person leaves, then you have to replace that person, whereas if you have a firm.
Yeah, and it's similar to the town attorney, right? So we have an arrangement for a town attorney that's not the kind of arrangement we used to have in town. There are benefits and there's pros and cons on both sides of those things. I do think that a town planner would benefit from being a town employee, being part of these budget discussions, being here with us every night, just like the other staff people are here. I think that's a way. I know that Justin has an implementation plan that is mirroring our strategic plan, but we need to, and I think it's on the strategic planning committee to do a little bit more work to try to pull those two things together. But I feel like they'd be more part of our process and more understanding where the Board of Selectmen is coming from. So things like a Beecher project, we asked some good questions. If the planner had heard us talking about these things, could have brought them in between because they're in that position. So
you're talking about hiring a full-time person?
yeah, we got a lot of projects. Planning.
I don't know that you were suggesting hiring a full-time person.
Well, we originally thought of the town planner as a part-time person, and my understanding was we weren't able to fill that position years ago because you can't find part-time.
You're absolutely right.
Well,
so a full-time person, but with less years' experience.
I hear you. So I'm not speaking to, I understand the value of having a town planner, and I don't know that right here and now we have to decide the best way to have a town planner. But I am dissatisfied with this town planner and the lack of engagement. This is on the Board of Selectmen budget line item. I didn't even know who this person was when he was speaking at the one meeting he attended. He's never reached out to me as a Board of Selectmen member.
How often do you hear from Christine or Karen or any of the other staff members in our town?
Well, but he's a
function in-
consultant, just like Cooper and Robertson's a consultant,
Cooper
who's
Robertson-
very engaged with us.
Because we've identified and we've indicated that that's the way we wanted. We outlined specifically how we wanted them to engage, and they're following that process. And that was something we did together. If that's how you want the town planner to work, if you want him to participate in the meetings or come to a meeting every quarter or whatever it is, that's certainly not a problem. We just have to identify it and do it. We control how our consultants function. But to indicate that because you don't hear from him, because he's not reaching out to you or anything along those lines, you have the ability to reach out to him as well to ask whatever questions, and he'll obviously respond in the way that Nick wouldn't, and let me know or let our office know. So
That's what's being discussed, is that he just should have been introduced better to us.
Yes, which might not be a him issue as much as it is an us issue, but regardless, the connection of his firm with those who sued us and his colleagues with those who sued us makes me very uncomfortable and feels inappropriate.
they were engaged because of their expertise. They formulated opinion. Justin is the individual who we work
I've
with.
seen no results of their expertise in this year. I've seen no value added. And that might not be a them problem. Again, that might be an us communication problem.
We have not had planning for years at all, town planning, for years. To expect in 9 months that we would have a plan where there would be tangible, what we're doing right now is we're laying the groundwork for what we need to do. The work we're doing is we're making contacts. We're developing strategy. We are working with different organizations that are essential in terms of us being able to get done or making progress. If you're looking for me to say, well, Justin wasn't involved with this project and it brought in this much, it's not going to happen. That's not what if you don't lay the groundwork, you don't get it happen. We just talked about how long it takes to do a project like we're doing for the Beecher Road School. If you look at any kind of development project at all, anything that adds growth to the town, it takes years.
Yes.
And in order to do it, you have to start from a planning
And
perspective.
just like that, he advised TPZ to not consider spot zoning for Fountain Street. And so this is an example of something that I personally don't align with. But
I get that, Andrew. I get that. That's fine.
And I don't understand how this person who has no real community engagement with Woodbridge and without having better insight into his expertise, as you call it, I don't know how I can value or trust that recommendation, for example. So again, I'm not saying there's no value in having town planning support. I understand probably better than most the value of having a planner, a town planner. I do not think at this time I can support allocating almost $84,000 to someone to this town planning firm. And I'm sorry if I'm not doing an adequate job explaining why.
I disagree with your point, but you made the point.
You don't see the conflict of interest
I do not.
in
I
the
do not.
connection with OCA?
Not at all. I do not see that as a conflict of interest from the perspective of the expertise that they're providing us on from a town planning basis.
So
I do not.
I hope
And my style has always been to embrace those who feel differently, to ask people for their opinions, to understand why people feel the way they feel in terms of what I might not agree with. So, because they used.
I think there's a difference, Mika, between embracing diversity of thought, which I don't think anyone here would advocate against, or anyone. But I don't see that as diversity of thought. His firm has direct ties with someone who sued us. that isn't diversity of thought, that's a different level of it.
I'm concerned that his advice may be along the exact same lines of the OCA because of that direct connection, which in fact we're paying lawyers to defend us against that
Doesn't
viewpoint.
make sense.
Lawyers who might go to a firm and an individual like Don to do the same thing that was used for OCA. You don't know what's going to happen from that perspective. I understand your point.
It just
The issue on the table is
doesn't
really,
make
do we
sense.
fund a town planner?
Right. that's the issue.
If we want to discuss what town planner it's going to be, I'm happy to have that discussion at another time. Right now, we're trying to decide, do we want to fund a town planner?
So let me ask you a question about the dollars. So 83,928. If we have a subsequent discussion about trying to hire someone, that's roughly a number that we could start with if we're trying to hire someone,
Not including benefits.
Doesn't include benefits.
So another 50,000 or
Right.
40,
Yeah, probably 20, 35, 45, 50,000 for benefits.
so you're at about 125.
Well,
Cost.
yeah.
Salary would be
Yeah, I
somewhere
mean, I
less
don't
than.
envision us doing that July 1st, so even if we did it midway through the year, then that
If you did it midway through the
dollar
year,
amount
it's
is
probably enough.
Can we leave this where it is and ask
it.
that we have Gordon York come in to maybe our March meeting?
Sure.
But I think that
I cannot vote to include this in our operating budget based on an assumption of what this person may say,
well,
you know, in
the
future
budget
meetings.
is for a planner, not for what someone will say.
Yeah.
The budget is for a planner. That's what the number is.
Our
It's not
contract
representative
is
of a statement by anybody.
month to month, or is it a year contract, or,
It's a year contract.
It's a year, but there's an out clause.
and there's an out?
Yeah.
And when does that renew? Or would
I
it?
think it's fiscal year, right? Am I right on that?
So Tony, if we want to go from professional services to a staff position, that's a.
Yeah, I just transferred one.
Transfer
Yeah.
within our budget.
Correct, yeah.
Whoever, the services of the planner going forward, now that it's not relying on the grant and on the taxpayer, should be presenting more information or we should have an update in our agenda so that the public has an idea of what this person's job description is and what they are working on.
Certainly not an issue. That'll happen.
And maybe the public should vote on this. It's their money, it's their tax. We have how many consultants right now?
You're suggesting it's a vote on a specific consultant
So,
and his line
Not
item?
on
One way
whether or
to
not
look
we
at it-
have a town planner.
one way.
I mean, they vote on the budget. That's what we need to.
But they don't necessarily vote on the budget.
So-
There's an opportunity for them to take, right?
Um,
Okay.
So the idea that I have that it goes from professional services that are contracted out to potentially a staff position. When we have staff attending here, it's not the same cost as if we were to have Justin come to every one of these meetings, then that's going against the retainer. Is that how it works? If he were to spend hours with us I know you guys love to be here, but.
We don't, we.
It's one of the benefits of having someone on staff.
We would use a town planner in the same way we use all the other town resources that we have. We don't have Chris, or we don't have Pat Crisco, or we don't have Marcia.
No, but we
attend every
do,
meeting.
we have Karen and we have Tony, because they're directly, our work as a board of selectmen, it's important for, you guys get a sense of where we're going and
See,
what we want
I
to do.
would love
Mhm.
to have a town planner who's a hired employee, because
Right.
it's particularly working
Right.
part-time. It will cost more than this.
Yeah.
And we don't know if that person will
Yeah.
work out any better or provide any additional support. And certainly, I don't expect that that person would have delivered any more tangible.
But I think it will tighten our connection, because I don't feel comfortable using the funds that we're currently using with professional services, on an hourly basis to have him come here and sit. But if the person was a staff person, I think it would tighten our connection. So that's my point. I think we're gonna move all of this discussion further away, but I'm okay leaving that dollar amount in there as long as we can continue to discuss how it's gonna be used, if you're open to that.
I'm very open to that. I have no problem with that at all. That's always an option.
Yeah, Mika, I agree that we ought to have more diversity of thought. I've always said that. And I told that to the diversity commission, because it seemed to me that the only diversity that we don't have in this town is thought, that we don't accept in this town. And I think that is a bad manifestation of the political environment that we find ourselves in, particularly when the people who are running that political environment are so drilled into the national politics and we're trying to get stuff done in this town. However, I don't think people like Goldman York hire professionals that have completely opposite views from what they are doing. And I don't like that we're being called a landscape of exclusivity by people on Goldman York staff, and I don't think we should be hiring that group. Period.
Point taken. I appreciate it. We can reconsider that. We can certainly, we'll have additional conversation on it. And I appreciate your diverse thought.
Thank you.
So, and I mean that's sincere. So it's definitely something that we can take up. I do feel that town planning function is essential if we're going to do anything in regards to growth in our town, particularly from a business district and an economic development standpoint. That's where I stand.
Not to jump, but with that in mind, and we can come back to this, but I noticed that the 40,000 EDC requested for that pilot project wasn't integrated into this.
That's correct.
So, I mean, there are other ways we can be supporting the economic development of this town that might be more financially might be more impactful or effective.
Is there an opportunity with the Main Street group that's doing their assessment to hear from them what their thoughts are on something like that program? Because I think I heard them expressing some concerns about a program like that in Woodbridge. So I would like to hear maybe from the Main Street assessment. Is that concluded yet? They're still working on it?
They haven't even started that yet. They don't start it until the end of March.
Okay.
Mhm.
So later on, when they have something to present to us, that's likely coming back to us, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So at that point, I mean, it doesn't help us budget-wise if we don't have the money here, but I don't know that I'm comfortable adding it in.
Adding-
The EDC line item?
What they asked for. I know we're not in that yet.
Yeah.
That's all the way.
Can we talk about the part-time clerical for the community center?
Yes. Well, sorry, I'm answering for everybody.
Are we on track to open the community center?
Yes.
Projection is October, is that, or last I heard?
October. Yes, it'll be toward the end, last quarter.
Okay. And
It
is there a
will
way we
take
can
additional.
cover?
I'm sorry.
Is there a way we can cover the initial needs for clerical for that building, keeping in mind that we're trying to grow its use, et cetera? There's obviously a job description in mind, which should come to personnel, or?
It will.
It will.
Have
Will.
to come to person.
So I kind of feel it's a little premature to have it in the budget, and I wonder if we might be able to, from October through June of next year, figure out a way to get started without this
You could.
in the budget.
You could do that.
I support that.
Okay.
I think it would be nice to get our feet on the ground before we,
Well, I think the
You
idea,
realize, from my perspective, I look at it very differently from that, because if you're not planning to get your feet on the ground, you're already done. So my sense is you would hire somebody while this is happening, so they can understand what the space is, and they can put programs into place, so that as soon as the building is ready, you move forward and you get it done. And you make use of the building.
right.
My sincere concern is that we just create more space for $3 million,
yeah.
and it's not being utilized.
Frankly, I have concerns about all of this whole project for that reason
That's
and for
water
this
over
reason,
this.
on both sides of the coin. But
This is the problem with grants.
yes,
Because
Well, it's a building that's been sitting for 10 plus years doing nothing either, so now it's getting,
we could talk
Well,
about
but the
that.
town,
we have talked about it.
we don't know what the town wanted to do. We didn't do a referendum on it.
You want to do another referendum, we can add that to the budget again.
I'm just saying, we took it from a
Sure,
grant.
but this position has a potential.
This is free money that is already costing us.
I'm not sure what the potential of this position
Well,
is. So I think personnel should probably hear that.
Sure, but if we don't budget for it, then we don't have a position for it. And my point is that I do think there is potential to bring in revenue through a program. If we're gonna be running programs out of there, there's a chance to recover monies. So though it comes up as an expense, we also have a new space that we can run programs.
Do we have that revenue in the
I didn't put
budget?
revenue in, no.
So if that's not in,
So where is that potential?
Where's the potential? I think programs can bring in revenue. I'm hearing that Tony didn't put it in there, but.
Well,
so
I mean,
we're gonna,
you can't estimate a dollar amount for something that's
we're
not.
putting money in for the imaginary person that we're gonna hire that's gonna give us imaginary income on the other side.
I mean, I think we heard throughout the proposals for this building that there should be a person in place to run programs there.
And that we would be discussing what that person would do and how we would fund it, et cetera. I don't think it's gonna hurt us, even if for 9 months, no one's in that position.
I mean, I think it will. I think it absolutely will.
It's gonna be 9 months behind whatever revenue we think we're bringing in. I
It's
don't
not
know
a
what
matter
that
of
revenue
revenue,
is,
it's a
and we
matter of
don't
the
have an
program.
estimate of that revenue in our budget either, so that we know we're not gonna be missing.
we
because
don't
didn't
even know
budget
if
for it.
it'll be done on time yet.
Well, if
If
it's
it'll
not
be,
that.
I know there are grant requirements, there are deadlines, but it's not done now. And and we all know how precarious life can be and what things can arise that throw us off course. And I hope that not to be true, given the grant, deliverable deadline. But I think when we're trying to be tough on the budget this year, this is something that doesn't need to be in this fiscal year.
I feel differently, and I'll just say, I think there's a number of places we can cut, and I'm happy to make cuts as we did in capital, but I think we need more staff in town to execute things that need to be done.
We
There's a
shouldn't
lot of
be
design.
increasing our
Before the end of the
services.
month, so we can
Did you just say we should be increasing
No, I'm
services?
saying if we don't have enough staff to deal with what we're dealing with, why are we increasing
We need to add
our
staff.
services?
We need to add staff.
Services such
So
as
can I
what?
suggest that we
Well,
have a
whatever
personnel
this-
committee meeting before the end of the month so that we can take a look at this job description, take a look at what we might be bypassing. I hear what you're saying, Steve. I just don't know the details of what is possible here because I haven't seen this. So I think personnel should take a look at it. If we can meet sometime before the end of, well, at whatever point in the budget we need to get back and say, we want to restore that. But I do agree, this is a year we're trying to not add FTEs here, and we're adding one. And
This is a
Well, it's a
part-time
part-time.
FTE.
it's a part-time, it's a 0.5 FTE, and that's more than a 0. So I would like personnel to discuss it first before we add that.
I think it's probably worthwhile to look for personnel to look at, Tony had shared last year like a 10-year outlook of how staff previously has contracted in town. And it's just we've lost
Yes,
people.
I remember
And-
seeing that.
Yes, and lost people, and lost people, and lost people. We cannot continue to do that.
Well, but is this the place we need? I mean,
Yeah.
I would argue we need a grant coordinator, if you want
There
to
are
talk
probably,
about.
well, my point is there are
overall.
multiple needs.
Right, so if this person's job is gonna be grant coordination and, coming up with events that bring in money somehow, great, but I think personnel can take a look.
I guess my
Speaking
request
as-
would be if personnel is gonna take a look, we should look at a number of things that get better.
I agree with that. I think
Open
we
to
should
that.
take, I think
Totally
this
open
should
to
be
that.
looked at holistically.
Yeah.
So, and, I mean, my question was gonna be to Mika and Tony about this is this enough to do the things that we'd like to do? And my impression is that it's not.
I don't think 2 weeks is gonna be enough to really make that decision.
Well, so,
honestly.
I mean, that was my concern looking at the budget last year, seeing the contraction. And, throughout the last year, we've had a number of people have their jobs adjusted
Yes,
to account for doing more.
that's
Yeah.
true.
And so,
We're seeing it in the budget.
well, right, and so, but my point is, my impression is that there needs to be more money allocated for people to do the work that
There's
this town is
always a need to
doing.
have more money allocated
Well,
to everything.
This is an area where I think it does, so I'm happy to
Particularly-
advocate it in this case. In other places, I'm happy to take it away, but in this case, I'm advocating for adding.
Particularly in a bureaucracy. Bureaucracies grow, and with every person you add a salary, and eventually you add benefits,
Yeah.
and it goes on forever, because bureaucracies hate to get rid of people.
Well,
But we took
the town has taken a lot out.
We
So
took a
we've done
$2 million free grant, and we came up, and the committee that we put together came up with a project that was well over $2 million, plus a whole additional project for the Grove, and I grant you, that may come under the guise of planning, but we paid for some of that, and then we paid for $50,000 for a stairway out of the training center over across the street, along with part of that, and I'm absolutely certain that before this thing is built, we're gonna be asked to do a lot more of town's money. And honestly, this is
So far, for the two buildings that you've referenced, we've not spent $1 of town money on that. $50,000 for the, I'm sorry, with the exception of the stairs, okay? So what we're doing is we've built a new building and we've renovated a building that's been empty for 18 years. Two projects that have been on the books for years that haven't been done. We've gotten them done in this, we've gotten them started in this past year, and we've gotten them scheduled in this past year. One's in progress and one's scheduled to begin in the March timeframe. And we've spent $40,000 to do that completely. $40,000 to do both of those projects, or 50, let's say 50, to complete both of those projects. So I get that it means that we're adding, and there's bureaucracy, you can say there's bureaucracy, but those are not good examples of ill use of money. You've got a building that's a gateway of our town center that has been standing vacant and operating as a garage for the better part of 13 or 18 years. And then you've got a storage facility that's finally built, that should have been built at the time that this firehouse was built, and has been constantly put off to the point that what should have cost $100,000 cost $800,000. So those are the things that we have accomplished as a board. Okay, those are the things that have progressed. I wouldn't even say accomplished, that have progressed as a board. Okay, so in two buildings, that will cost the taxpayer dollars about $50,000. It's not a bad thing. Could we have used that in a different way? My God, I can tell you that I would have probably had to use it in a different way. But that's not our, we're not there. That's not ours. Okay? What we need to do is decide what we're going to do going forward. And my sense is, what I don't want to see happen is for us to have rooms, nice, beautiful rooms that we spend $3 million on, not being used, or being used for the same meetings that we're doing in room 13 or room 16 at the Senate building. I'd like us to see, to actually hire someone who does this for a living and who can do exactly what Steve said, put together programs that enhance our quality of life. Whether it's birthday party space for the kids who want to have birthday parties somewhere in town where the parents don't have to clean up afterwards, or something along those lines, that's what I envision. And that's the resource that we're looking for here. We're looking for somebody who can enhance that space to the point that it will be an asset to the town. It's done. It's there. We're not doing anything about that. It's going to be there. So let's put it to good use. That's what I'm
So is
trying to
it
do.
possible that we have staff, I know we have some very creative people on the library commission that put together programs. I know recreation puts together programs. I know human services puts together programs. Isn't it possible that we could start by, not doing it by committee, but getting some of these ideas together, using existing staff to get it up and running for the first 9 months?
What I would suggest, Sheila, is that you reach out for, whether we have the personnel meeting, reach out to human services, ask them what kind of space they have, what kind of spare capacity
Yeah.
that they have in order to make that
And library,
happen.
too.
And the library,
Because they do a
and
good
the other one that you spoke of,
Recreation.
and recreation. Okay?
I'd be happy to do
I
that.
can tell you,
Let's
human
try to
services and
schedule,
libraries,
I'm
not so
hearing
much.
Tony say 2 weeks is not enough time, but if we do it later this spring. And I agree with you, Mika, it is going to be great when we have that building up and running, and we should absolutely be using it to the height of its capacity. I'm just a little concerned that we're rushing to put in a position. I'd like us to explore a couple of options and then come up with the best way.
It's February. The
Right,
budget is
and
for
I
July.
remember Sandy telling us last August that it would be a separate discussion for us in the spring, and I did not anticipate seeing it here because it hasn't been discussed. I think it should go through personnel, as I've said.
The building won't
I
be
know I keep saying
completed
the same
until
thing,
the
it's
end of
getting
this
very
year,
late.
so we're talking about it next year.
Is there a job description?
No.
Okay.
There is not. We need to put one together so we can tell, we
That'd
can
be a
determine
good-
what we need to do. It's in the budget to be in the budget, so that we can, if we feel that this is necessary, we can pay for it.
If it's not here and we build a job description and put everything together, we're not gonna be able to pay for it because there is no placeholder for it.
Correct.
Well, but we can also adjust other jobs. What I'm saying is, there's a couple of people that we should be talking to, a couple of entities already that do similar work. I definitely don't want it to be redundant, so maybe we're pulling out of someone else's job description to put together the resource. I agree that we should have a resource as soon as possible, but I also want time to appropriately plan for it, and I'm not comfortable putting this money in tonight. That's where I'm at.
We are on line 4.
Can I just quickly ask,
30
what is
days
car
down.
allowance? What is car allowance?
So if somebody uses their personal car,
Mileage.
So it's
Mileage.
mileage
Yeah,
to
mileage.
Very
do
little.
things like,
go to conferences or, go to
Things that go
seminars.
beyond your normal scope of your job.
okay.
Right.
Same thing as like corporate.
Can the holistic question I was trying to get at, which Mika and Tony can answer, is whether or not this, I mean, I understand you're trying to keep this budget as tight as you can, and there's the addition of that position there, but does this represent really what's needed in the town office?
No, it would be wonderful to have a grant writer. That would be absolutely wonderful. It
It would, and that would save us
It would be
money.
great to have an actual receptionist in town so that Tony's not doing,
It might be,
Tony Valinsky is not doing 5 different things, and there's actually a receptionist who, that's their function, all the personal things that go along with that. No, there's a lot more that could be used.
I mean, that's my concern about this. I understand all the potentials to cut things, and it's tough, but I think, my year of experience here suggests that there needs to be more in this. And that we've had it come to personnel a number of times that people's jobs need to be adjusted, that people's pay maybe isn't where it should be. That's my concern, is that we have people working hard for this town. You want to call it bureaucracy or not, we have people doing hard work for this town. I'm not sure that they're being paid appropriately, and I'm not sure that their job loads are appropriate for the work that they're doing. So that's my concern. And I don't know that this budget appropriately reflects what needs to be done.
It doesn't.
So,
Never does.
right, so
It doesn't even come close.
I would
But I
say-
gotta tell you, we have people in this town who own their houses, they don't rent them,
yeah.
and when you tell them that they're gonna pay $5,000 more this year because of whatever, we don't control all of it, they're not gonna like to see that we're hiring people to do other stuff in the town. Because those people are the people who probably think we already have too many people on the payroll.
Are they the
So,
same
if
people
this is the
around
year that you think that we ought to be doing that-
What can we do with it?
That's a political decision.
We could have done it last year.
Political
If we
decision.
don't ask about it last year, and we didn't ask about it this year, when are we gonna ask about it? Is it next year that we're gonna ask about it? I haven't heard a hint of asking
All right,
about
so
it. And what
Andrea
I've seen in the
and I
last
sit
10
on
years
the
is
personnel
contraction.
committee, and I think we are both open to personnel taking this on. And I would like to see the personnel committee take a holistic look at this. I hear what you're saying, Steve, and I'm concerned, and I hear what Dave is saying, and I'm concerned. That's why we have committees. So
That's why you have
let's-
Yeah, and I think maybe we need to hear from the staff, from whoever oversees,
Well, I think
So you have
Tony,
Where the holes are.
you have a handful of positions in this budget that are new. You have a police officer position that's new, that's probably $130,000, $140,000. There's a parks position that has gone from part-time to full-time. There's this position, and there's a number of salary increases. But you do have to recommend a budget by March 1st.
and we have to end our meeting sometime tonight.
Well, but,
Charter says you need-
this one is a little more personal because it's under the board of selectmen.
So
Yeah, I just want to let you know, you don't have 2 months to
It's
figure it
under the
out.
board of selectmen because that's the place where we're putting stuff. It ultimately will end up, if we combine rec and human services, it'll end up under community services because that's what it'll be under. We don't have that right now. It's not appropriate to put it under human services, it's not appropriate to put it under rec. If we have a community services organization, at that point in time, the community center director would be, that's where it would go. So that's why it's here. That's why it's here. It's just because we need the position, where else are we gonna put it? I don't wanna put it on Jeanette, I don't wanna put it on John, because that's not appropriate. So here it is.
So Mika,
So just, so, you know, just in the way of explanation.
with that in mind, that notion of, and this is going back to our strategic plan, kind of pulling together, making that community services department for human services and recreation together. Is there anything in our budget document that relates to that, or we're not ready for that? Okay, all right, so, again, all the more reason to put these all together. It should be under that budget heading, absolutely. When we introduce a new staff position, it should be in the right department. Sounds like we're gonna create a department that this person would work in. So, I don't know.
Well, we're going through this department by department, but to Tony's point, you know, there's other positions that are being added, and on the police department front, you know, they've asked for another position, and I understand they've asked for that for years, but they're not actually hired to where they're budgeted at right now, right? They've got 23 budgeted for currently, they've got 20 on.
And they have vacancies.
Right, so they're not hired up to the budget level, and so I don't see this as being the year to add the position.
Right.
That's
So
my
let's-
take.
Should we,
But I would,
To the police department?
to the police department.
so we're not gonna vote on page by page, we're gonna try to do what we did for capital, just keep going and have one number at the end. So are we done with
Ideally.
Board of Selectmen? We wanna go to the next?
Well,
or-
what my point would be to move funds up into here. There's money elsewhere, so the idea that I'm having is that we need more money in here for our town staff. And there's a position later that I don't think we need, and that's how I would move money around.
All right, well, let's go down and talk to, when we get down to that.
Is there any other questions on the board selecting or any of the comments or thoughts?
For 10:04 PM, I'd say let's move on.
Good. Probate, there's no adjustment.
All right.
Town clerk, there's a slight adjustment upward in regular assistance, just essentially for more hours in that department. We plan to shift some work that's being done in the selectman's office down to the town clerk. But in order to save money, that we've reduced some of the other lines to accommodate for that change.
Tony, may I ask, and I understand the value wholeheartedly of professional development. It's integral, and I'm not, and professional development dues, I get, they're par for the course. I don't know if those are into FTE union contracts or what.
Which line are you talking about?
Well, it's represented in almost every department.
Oh, yeah,
but
there's nothing,
But it adds up, like $3,000, so this is line item 54610.
You've got a new
All of these add up, and I'm just wondering if for 1 year, can we just say, no one's going to a conference?
The only one I wouldn't say that is the assessor.
Okay.
She has to like earn a certain number of.
And I'm sure fire department, like
Credits.
with certain trainings, there are annual requirements,
Right.
but is there a way, and I say this with some hesitation because of course investing in your staff and in their technical expertise is critically important, but for just 1 year, to put a pause and like, we're not going to conferences this year unless it is a requirement for legal or training purposes. And if we were to add all those $1,000 here, $3,000 there, that might become something.
So I would say town clerk, because it's a brand new team here, this is not the year to do that to town
Sure.
clerk.
Yeah,
So I'd like
that's
to
fine.
skip.
This was a more broad
another
question.
budget for
I'll tell you that we don't really have anyone that goes on any out-of-state
Conference.
conferences. We've cut most of that out.
We've
It's
also,
all local.
we've also cut, for example, the police department don't do a lot of their, they would go to different departments and do different programs with different departments and share information along those lines. Again, cut already. So most of what you're seeing here are people who are going to learn more about their particular area of expertise. And like you said, it is very important.
Yeah,
Can you say we're not gonna do it?
for 1 year.
You can say that, but if you do it, you know,
Maybe not
You're
for
gonna find-
everybody?
You're
Might
gonna
be
find-
otherwise pound foolish.
Yeah,
Okay.
because
It's
mostly,
also,
Okay,
I would say mostly what you learn by going to conferences is when you talk to your peers.
yes.
yes.
And everyone's in one spot, so you all.
Okay,
I'm
we
sure
can
you
move
do
on,
the
I
same
don't wanna
thing.
waste time, I just was throwing it out there as.
On the salary
for
of
a
the town
temporary-
clerk, we have a new town clerk, correct?
Mhm.
Yes.
Did that come in at the same salary as the one who'd been serving for all those years? Why does it go, we've got the 2.5%
2.5%, yeah.
normal raise, but did we start a new town clerk in at the same salary as the clerk that had been here for 15 years? or
And this
whatever?
is the danger of, and you were saying, or Steve was saying, are we properly compensating people?
Well,
When we have to
no.
replace somebody with
Correct.
many, many years of experience and we go out to the market,
You
we
have to
find
pay
out,
what the
oops,
market is.
we were out of line.
And then she
So,
was the assistant, and so her salary was an assistant, not
Got
just
it.
a town,
So
regular
that we
town.
went up.
town
I just
clerk.
asked the
Yeah,
question.
This is the
and Sheila's
cost.
point is exactly right. What happens is we need,
We were underpaying because we had somebody who'd been there forever.
Correct.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the answer.
the market
Thank you.
rate is much higher than,
I think
that's one of the reasons we can't get
I
police
work for the
department,
state, so we'll be
police
able to-
officers, because our starting salary is significantly below market.
We have a great, we have
You
a
know,
great
so-
town. Can I ask about election supplies? Is this the line if we wanted to say, hey, we're gonna have a referendum, we need to increase?
Correct.
Should we do that?
I would say only if you have something to increase it for.
And we haven't decided that yet.
Right.
All right. We'll let
Well,
that.
and it was much higher last year because of the election.
Election.
And because of the
Yeah.
early voting and such. So it's
Registrar,
come down to represent that we don't have all of those things.
Right, but we don't have any money for any referendum here, but I think that's fine. When we get to that, we get to it.
there's no change to the registrar's budget.
And go fund.
Yes, that's good.
Question.
Are you talking in town clerk or registrar, Sheila?
Town clerk is talking about.
Town clerk, the election supplies, I don't know if that's the cost of the ballots, right?
Right.
Yeah, so we need those for a referendum. Anyway.
Okay.
We'll figure it out when we get there.
Registrar,
Mhm.
no changes.
Samson, it's the topic.
Is there anybody recommending any changes for registrar of voters?
No.
Government access television? We reduced the amount of, it's all about how many meetings you want to take, really. If you want to take more meetings, you could put it back up to where it was.
Is that general professional services?
Yeah, it should really be part-time all other, because they're all on staff.
Right, right, right.
So it's in the wrong account.
So you moved, you added some to part-time all
It
others?
was essentially 37, and we dropped it to 32.
I see, yeah.
And it was previously 29.
Yeah.
Can I have a question, actually, since you're talking? Is this okay?
Sure.
No, Nick, you're not allowed to talk.
I think I asked somebody before, sometimes we need like a extra person sometimes. How do we go, isn't there a way to do it where we can do it, where we don't have to hire somebody, we can do somebody by like, not like contract, but like, just have, so is there a way to do that? Am I asking a
Like a
question?
1099, you're talking about like
I'm not
contract?
following.
Or something like that,
Something
to
like
where
we're
we
doing
can,
temporary assistance for it, like, we need one person for 2 days. you
Like
pay
a
them an
per
hour,
diem type of thing?
per diem.
sometimes, you know, if like, we have kind of short staff sometimes.
Yeah, if you know somebody who you
And so
want to
like,
bring in,
yeah, if like, you know, like 2 people are sick,
yeah, you can do that. You just
And
have
then-
to, they just have to be registered with us, so we have all the paperwork before they start.
okay, that's all, yeah. Okay, thank you.
So, I've kind of advocated in the past that those kind of questions, that usually was something the commission would talk about and the coordinator would do. And I know we don't have the coordinator same position we used to have, and while I'm fine with that, I do think we should try to get the commission back together, and I know that's something that we've talked about, and I think we should do. I think that this funding is fine, but I would like to have a commission working on it again if we can find volunteers for that.
Talk to both party chairs and suggest that they give us some candidates.
And I'm happy to work with that group to give them background. And I'm sure Pool Forward will also do that.
Sounds good.
Call them up and ask her nicely.
I'm curious, since this is an increase, is this representing more staff, or is it representing more meetings being?
It's actually a decrease.
It's a decrease.
It's
Well, it's an increase from last year.
From last year, I understand. Yes. I'm sorry. From the request.
More hours.
From the request, yeah.
More hours.
It's more hours,
Yeah.
because more meetings?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
So-
because our board of selectmen.
Is it not?
We're here for like 1,000 hours. I think get hourly pay.
We alone in the county, we're all
It's possibly a part of it.
So it's a good question. I will tell you that there's bylaws that say certain town meetings have to be covered,
Sure.
and then others are optional, and that was something that the commission would weigh in on to say, okay, we're out of money, we can't do that. Board of Selectmen's gone way too long, and now we can't cover X commissioner.
So we're a big factor in that, I get that. I
You're
guess-
okay if we cut back?
And-
You're
Well,
okay if we cut back, Sheila?
I mean, that was,
Because it
We're
could be
gonna
just the
cover
Board of
for
Selectmen,
meetings.
Board of Finance,
Okay.
and TPZ, I think are the three.
and Board of Ed.
And Board of Education.
And Board of-
Board of Education used to pay for their own, so we could go back to charging them, honestly.
well, those.
It's still on the budget sheet, so.
Okay, I think what
Yeah,
happens
it is.
I would agree that those are the meetings, the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance,
Yeah,
TPZ.
I think this is
and-
inappropriate.
I'm trying to ask if that's what we're currently paying for, or are we paying for more than
No,
that?
we're paying for more. It was suggested that we do more. It
We're
was
filming
suggested we
housing
film
and
more. Well,
other.
yeah.
Conservation.
early in the year-
We're filming.
Yeah,
That's
so,
what I
I mean,
said.
the
And that's
commission
what we
was,
want the
Early in
commission
the
to
year, we had
figure out the
we had
level
this
of
conversation, and
transparency.
it was said that we should do more.
Yeah, because we were trying to be more
right,
transparent.
but,
Exactly.
Yes.
right,
So
but
that's
if
why
we
I'm,
Yeah, kind of.
so in the context of the money, my point is, can we bring this number back down? I mean, I guess I don't know what the breakout is in
I
terms
would
of the
be comfortable
number.
keeping it where it is, but just getting some more oversight for the use of the money. I think this needs to be here. We're hearing a lot about transparency in government, and we want to be presenting as much information as we can. I don't want to signal that we're going to cut back on meetings. I don't want to signal that.
The meetings still happen, people can attend, there's lots of ways, but whether or not they're filmed, I don't know, there's lots of ways
If
to.
anyone has questions on like how I'm here, yeah, I can ask.
Oh.
I know, seriously.
Yes.
I'm happy with
Okay.
this, the way it is.
Yeah.
That's all.
I don't want to cut you anymore, guys. I like what you got here.
Okay.
Okay.
everybody there? Move on? Thank you.
General admin, there's just one adjustment, because the shared, the repair maintenance of the phone system is not included in the voice over IP charge. So, we don't need to pay that anymore. Information systems.
No change here?
No change.
So are we able to accommodate the additional email addresses for Board of Selectmen?
If it's just the board, yes. If it's anything more than the board, no.
Well, I'm okay with it just being the board. The rest of you.
Is that integrated into this?
It can be.
It's $1,000.
It's only less than $1,000 a year.
a year
For BOS members?
for BOS
For
funds.
BOS.
We haven't done that in the past. It's something, I mean, when I was on the board, when I first
Yeah.
got on the board, I asked for it. But everyone's been using their own, so it was more, it's not a matter of, no, we don't want to, or no, we can't. It's more a matter of, well, we never had to. Because if you got your own email address,
we've never seen before.
so,
We're
Right.
going
Yeah.
to discover the question.
so from that perspective, so certainly I'm not opposed to it at all.
So is that reflected in this budget though?
Yeah.
For the six?
Just for the 5.
For five, oh, because we could.
And we already have one.
Okay.
So I'd like us to move to that as soon as possible to assist with the request that we have.
Okay.
So, thank you.
That was training.
What line item
No,
is that?
no,
Is that
make sure you
software
understand, make sure you understand that means you do need to abide by the town. That means, when you have to take the trainings that are provided by the town, when, in terms of the
Yep,
data.
acceptable use
you
policy.
have
Yeah,
to-
acceptable use policy, right.
So you're,
I don't know that I want to do that.
there's a lot, there's more that goes along with it because all the security,
Well, the
you have to do the
document
security
retention.
trainings. You have to, there's phishing things that are sent out.
What if you
Yeah,
had to
you
do it for
can't-
your other job?
I don't know that you can
Yeah,
point this
it's the
email
same
to
thing.
your personal email. So you will have to check two email boxes, because it's the authentication it's dual authentication or whatever it is.
So we would
So
do all our
there's
official business
implications
with
like
our
that
official
that you need to be
accounts.
ready to do as well. So if you, for example, are pointing your existing mailbox to your personal mailbox right now, you're gonna have to check two mailboxes, because this one's gotta be completely separate.
Yep, and we're gonna do all our official business with the official accounts. So you will not have your personal account involved in.
We
Well, your
get,
personal account isn't involved if you're doing, like what you're doing right now.
we have it in the budget now, we get
That's
to, we actually get to decide that later, and we'll vote on it
Right.
whenever we do.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm okay with
It's in the
keeping
budget. It's in the budget.
Yeah.
You're right, but we can move on
I'm
and
okay with
figure that
keeping the
out.
option.
Not tonight.
So we're not gonna decide on that tonight.
Not at 10, 20.
Thank you.
Finance, I just made a couple of adjustments, most notably the banking line. This is reflective of our earnings credit rating increasing. It's working money, we earn interest on float, which pays for fees. So as the interest rates go up, that changes, we pay less in fees. Tax collector, they're making a change. Assessor, no change.
Tony, can I just, car allowance for that is 1,800.
Where
A tax collector.
Oh, yeah.
Is that just the
We go
nature of the
back-
work?
We go back and forth to the bank
Okay.
every day.
Okay.
That's where most of it is.
And in July and January, multiple times a day.
Yeah, I don't
Right,
know.
July,
I don't
right.
know. I just, I'm wondering how that, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Assessor,
Nothing really here, right?
no. It's a 2% increase. Board of Assessment Appeals, it's not much there. Board of Finance. So a lot of these small departments, we didn't make any changes to. The one item in T, town plan and zoning, is $25,000 for work on the zoning regulations that Chris put in there. That's really the one item that's, you can,
Tony, is that the, putting the regulations once they're approved into the online system?
I think this is for assistant,
that's professional services?
professional assistance for further review of their regulations.
Is the, I know we already,
Isn't that POCD? Or no?
No,
The general
POCD was, that was POCD.
Yeah, okay, but not just CSD.
Yeah.
so now it's,
So, now we should
Sorry.
change.
but putting it in Ecode 360, that shows up under like information system?
Code 360 is in Selectmen's line, so there's a $1,000 charge that we budget for any updates to Code 360.
Right, so the zoning cleanup that they just did will
Right,
eventually get
that'll
in
get
here?
to the correct,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. And not, right now, it's there, but it's a PDF, but it's meant to get.
It's a PDF on the website? So
No,
just-
any Code 360,
Oh,
it's
Code 360.
hanging as like pending, and it's a PDF. I think they need the actual text that changed.
Right.
Christine mentioned it.
Yeah.
But that was in the other budget, and we have that still
Correct.
for their work.
Right.
Okay.
Zoning Board of Appeals, these are all small departments, not much there. The center building, I'm still working on the electricity for all these accounts, and close communication with the utility on when they think we'll get adjusted, if we get adjusted, and what that will be. But we don't know that yet. So these most likely will go down, but I'm not sure by how much and when that will happen. So I hope to know that by the time we approve the final budget.
And Tony, that water number, that projected
Mhm.
this year, we're not carrying that forward, but that's okay?
Yeah, I think we're all right there.
Okay.
Next is the Community and Cultural Center. What's the title of that one? from a former firehouse. There's mainly utilities there. And finally, police. Police, there's a series of adjustments here, which I won't necessarily go into in too much detail unless you have any particular questions. But what I do want to mention here is the position. Give me a second.
The police officer position, that's the adding one
Correct.
from their budget,
That
20,
option is-
moving from 23 to 24.
Right.
What line item is that?
5220, so full-time police officer, so it's up from, 164 to 1707, representing an additional officer. And if I remember it right, it's there.
50220.
Yeah, 502. If I remember correctly,
I'm like,
budgeted
all the
for,
files
previously
are
budgeted for 23, and they'd asked for an additional, and they've asked for more in the past as well. The point I was making earlier is that they're staffed at 20 now, and so it might be hard to get to 23 or to 24 within this year, so we don't want to budget for that. That's not even, they're not even staffed at the 23 level at this stage. So my suggestion from earlier was to move monies from this line to the Board of Selectmen line for town staffing. And no, I didn't go through personnel to have a position crafted for it.
Not
So I
yet.
don't have a job description,
See,
But you will.
what impact
but come
would
to the next
that,
meeting.
so would that take it away from them forever?
I mean, no, not forever. I mean, they can ask again next year. They asked last year for multiple positions.
Okay.
But I'd like to see them get up to 23. If we're going to get to 24, well, they should be at 23, or if we're currently they're at 20. Obviously, I also understand the building needs at the police department. Separate, that's obviously separate and a capital issue, and so certainly want to see our police department having conditions that they're both comfortable and able to operate in well. And I did walk through the building, and I understand that there's some significant issues and areas of concern there. But separately, on the officer front, I'm not sure I can see getting to 24 this year. That's my take on it, and so I'd rather see that spent elsewhere.
So in the police budget, the amount for the officer is $81,510. And in benefits, it is $40,000. So if you were to remove that position, that would be the impact.
In two different budgets.
Two different budgets, right?
Jimmy, why did the first two line items, 5106 and 5107, decrease?
Because they were given an increase last year, but they usually get the increase that the officers get. And the officer's contract is still in negotiation. So you look at the actual projected there is incorrect. They're not going to get, those projections are wrong. So they're still at 129, 508, 117, 760. They haven't, see, they have 23, 24? Right. That should be the same in 24, 25, 25, 26, because that contract's been in negotiation for 2 years.
Okay, got it, thank you.
So I just,
It will have to be made up, obviously, Maria,
Right,
and there's,
That's one of the contingencies.
that's contingency.
thank you.
so is the question on the table right now whether or not to fund one position, one FTE for the police?
One additional FTE, right?
That is in the 1.707.
That's what that represents, is one additional.
There is one additional one in the 1.707.
About $121,500 approximately,
Okay.
between two budgets.
Right. And
They've continued to make their case in terms of their coverage and their ability to cover, particularly in a situation where somebody gets sick or is out on
But they presented some
Absolutely.
compelling
really
information.
telling, yes,
Mhm.
those are the words.
I agree, and it's hard not to think of it along the lines of what Steve says. You're asking for one additional position when you're down 3. It's like, you almost wish you can fund it when you get to 23, but that's not how that's not how it works.
But doesn't it get them closer to being where they need to be, right?
Well,
Not if
for what they, for
It
where they
raises
feel they need
taxes
to be,
before they're
yes.
gonna use it.
Right, that's basically.
I'm sorry, what was that?
It's raising taxes, and they may not be able to fill the position.
Oh.
That's the
So why don't we
concern.
go
But
one
does it
step at a
always,
time?
does it ever work differently?
They are
where they-
always trying to fill positions.
Where they have someone and it's not in the budget? Like how else would it work?
You have to have it in the budget to fill a position.
Yeah.
My point is that this is an increase to 24 from 23, but they only have actually 20.
So they're asking to increase their cap
Yeah,
to 24.
24, so that they can plan to
Okay.
hire
Okay.
4 more instead of 3 more.
Okay.
Because that's the level they want to be at.
Exactly.
Right, and in the past, right, if I remember correctly, the historical level
It's late, Andy.
was 26.
26.
Right, at some point they were 26. So,
a long time ago.
yeah, a long time ago, they were at 26. So their point is,
I see.
we had been at 26, we're now down at this level, we'd like to be.
So they really need to fill their current openings.
And that's my
in order
point
to-
here, is that I don't want to tax on this
Yeah.
for that, but I also see personnel needs
Are you
elsewhere.
suggesting we take a person off of this?
I'm I'm not suggesting take another, I'm saying not adding the 20.
Take the person off, we've got 24 right here, at the
Correct.
1707.
Right, so
You're
I'm
suggesting take
Make it
one person
23.
off.
Yes, I'm saying
You're
making it
saying
23, which is what they were budgeted for last year.
Right.
So it maintains
That's correct.
last year's number,
I
which was
see.
still only had 20 people on it. So
That makes sense.
so it wouldn't be, so I'm suggesting we don't approve the increase, but I'm also saying, because I said earlier.
But you're saying use that money.
I'm saying that money-
So it
yes.
wouldn't be a net reduction in the proposed budget.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that 81 can be used elsewhere
Yeah.
for staff that it seems to me, again, I didn't go through personnel, but it seems to me that money could be well used, given that we've had numerous requests on the personnel front in other areas, and we're likely to get them, so I'd like to budget for them in the department where I think they need it. But I'm also happy to see you take that out,
I'm sure they're trying hard to fill those positions.
no doubt.
Very much so.
They are.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And they've had they've had two people come in, go to the academy and not make it through.
Oh, that's a challenge.
Well, not make it through to be employed with us.
Correct. They may have got a better offer from somewhere else.
They may be
After
through,
the
just not for us.
Yeah.
Hey, wait a minute, I get them.
Well, and the idea of attracting and retaining, and that's why we have to invest in the facility too. And we know.
All right, we gotta move on.
I don't want to go to North
So
Brandon.
let's stay focused on this.
We want to
Yeah, I'm okay with this.
I think we're,
are we gonna change it to 23, or are we gonna keep it at 24? Because this is a tough budget.
That's my suggestion, so.
Yeah,
I
okay.
think we landed on 20.
That's good, 23.
You okay?
Next in fire, we made a series of changes, which we're happy to review them if you'd like, but we sort of made a series of changes to do what we thought would be more.
Tony, can I just ask back up on police?
Sure.
DARE,
Yeah.
is that still a program?
As far as I know.
DARE? It is?
We talked,
Like,
this
I
came
thought it
up in
wasn't
our
based
meeting.
on my
It'll
kids.
come up.
This
So
came up
should
in our.
that line
You did
item
mention
go
it.
away?
It needs, it's like community supplies and if I remember right, this came up maybe each of the last 2 years. It has somehow changed and it's still the existing title of the line, but it involves community supplies and whenever they do.
Well, Vinny used to do it, and he can't because he's not technically a police officer any longer.
So
So,
you suggest I change the title?
That was my
at the very least,
recollection.
change the title,
Maybe say that
but
last time.
maybe that whole line can go away. I don't know.
Good.
I think that they advocated for it staying, but it should be a different name. That's my recollection.
Community supplies?
This is for community, like the community outreach,
Yeah, like a
Like for
firehouse.
kids and
Yeah.
stuff, yeah.
equivalent to what the fire.
Is it programs and publicity for fire? Maybe it's the same thing for them.
Either way, maybe.
They have it
maybe
in their,
this year
in
we
their
don't need
request as community policing.
Community policing.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
120,000.
Promotional items.
Okay.
those- Wait a minute, pennies.
Government
Tony,
said chunk
for
change.
fire, or entertainment?
Oh, under DARE, community policing, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Just
Right.
a little.
Right,
It's like, we're still there.
Still out fully.
yeah.
All right, we're ready for fire?
Yeah, we're fine.
We're not taking that up, correct, just to make sure, Andrea?
I'm sorry.
Leaving data.
Yeah, maybe
Change-
just titling
change-
it.
yeah. Fire department?
We just brought a number of them back down to where the budget is currently.
I thought that was for the additional building though as well.
What's
They
that?
anticipated.
Oh, the custodial,
Yeah.
cleaning and custodial.
We
I think
raised
you're
it,
right, Maria.
we raised it 2,000.
This is, you know, it seems like we have something like 6 or 7 line items individually that are 6 figures and 2 that are 7 figures. And so when we look at all the others going up 5 or 6%, you look, that's one thing, but when a 6-figure line item goes up 11%, that's a lot. And, I mean,
Well, some we can
and
do
that
something
was,
about and some we can't.
I know, there's a
What
lot of
are
things
the
we
ones
can't do
that
about,
you-
but it was kind of ironic that we were being told how much the rest of the departments needed money and everybody was being really shortchanged when, you know, the 6-figure department is asking for 11%, which is more than what most of the departments are getting. Just their increase would be more than what most departments have in their full
The
thing.
11% reflects the cuts that we made.
The what?
The 11% reflects the cuts that we made. I think it was up near 18%.
It was 18.
It was 18 before?
Yes.
What are some of the things we could,
That's,
Cut further.
congratulations.
So you cut natural gas, that's a significant cut, and that's because we're gonna have the repair, right?
Correct.
Okay. Good. Our stitching time will save 9.
That's it.
40,000.
Yeah.
So then little things, like technically trimmed a little,
Right, we sort of cut a lot of.
professional development,
There are,
trimmed
there are
down.
a number of big ticket items that aren't, you can't really hit, you can't really do anything with,
Yeah,
you know, so
yeah, I understand that. I know that.
Like the gear replacement, for instance.
the radio, the hydrants.
Yeah,
you know,
no,
You know, some of this training we absolutely have to do.
I get it. But, and it was on their the capital budget for the fire, was that where the repainting of the hydrants?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
We have to
Yes.
push that.
That was-
Push that.
so yeah, what's this hydrant sign?
That's
item?
that's the water.
That's the
just
water.
what we have to say to have it.
Yeah,
Okay.
and not
Payable
just,
regional
Yeah,
water
that
authority.
can't be.
water is expensive.
It's kind of like legal ads. They
Yeah.
they tell us what they're charging, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah.
Regional water authority, that's what that gets paid to.
Yeah, they charge whatever it is they have to pay us in taxes.
I can't think of anything else.
These rental equipment, rentals, what is that for?
What line item is it, Andrea? I'm sorry,
53610.
thank you.
You brought it down,
Rentals. 2000, from 22 to 20.
yeah, but it's still an 11% increase. I just don't know what the rent, you know, if that's,
I think he said this is a cost that they're being handed and they can't.
I feel like
That's
that's
a lot.
that's the.
Trash removal,
costs,
copier rental.
I'm sorry, Karen?
Trash removal, copier rental, linen and mat service, the
Copy.
oxygen canisters. And he said that the vendors have informed the fire department to expect increases.
Okay,
And that's it.
great.
You gotta have those services.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right.
Tony, we're not changing the electric. I know we changed natural gas, but electric.
I'm still waiting to,
We don't know.
yeah, that's one of the ones I'm keeping an eye on, yeah. I'm hoping to change that
It'd
later.
be nice if that could go down.
Yeah. EMS is all contractual. This does have a, current contract ends in, end of this year. So I had to estimate 6 months on that.
This is mostly the general professional services, the ambulance.
Yeah, ambulance.
When do those contract negotiations start? Summer or?
They usually start 6 months before, so the summer, yeah. Control, change. Building official. No change there. That's a pretty good budget, I think. Public Works. We reduced the buyback sick to something where we think it's historically been used for. And then I increased the street light line because that's a fixed amount. As you can see, last year we paid 38, this year probably gonna be at 38, so that's where that should be. So to compensate for that, reduced road maintenance to 35. If you look at 2 years ago, you spent 33. So it's just sort of realigning priorities there a little bit.
So Tony, electric street and stoplight, that's just the cost of electricity?
It's for the lights. It's like a fixed sort of rate that you pay per fixture or something.
If only we could save money by turning them off at night.
The street lights or the stoplights?
Well, these are the public work, are these throughout town, or this is on the public works?
No, throughout the town.
We have street
But on the
lights?
town campus. Yeah, no, I know you.
There's one on the corner of Peck Hill Road and Old Quarry. There's one, random streetlight, just so you know, I noticed.
But there's a lot on the center campus that seem to be on, like it's the airport. When you drive by, it's like you could land at the airport. Anyway, sorry.
Okay. Waste management. A couple of minor adjustments. It's all fixed costs. Maintenance, no change there. Human services.
Tony, can you remind me what their 50 to 100 is, general and professional
Human
service?
services,
Yeah.
that's where they pay for the food.
Oh,
the,
and then they get revenue.
Yeah, they get revenue on the other side. It's about the same. The revenue's a little higher, actually. Their total revenue, but yeah, they get revenue for it.
Their revenue side's pretty high, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 42, I think now. Yeah,
Pretty good.
It
yeah.
is.
They're budgeting for charging for out of town.
Yeah, that makes a big difference.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, me too.
Let's
Yeah.
let's not pay for out-of-town people in our human service.
Let's see. So there's not really much change there. Recreation, there's an adjustment.
Would we take that out of, what was it?
Wasn't rec
Part-time season,
asking for a
Part-time
job?
season, oh,
Yeah. So,
we reduced the overall amount spent on part-time season.
but I'm sorry, wasn't this department asking for a full-time job? No.
Recreation?
Was that?
Parks.
Parks.
That's the next
All
one.
right, thank you.
Part-time seasonal is.
These guys were asking for the 90.
Whole bunch.
Baseball.
Camp
Oh, that's
counselors, after school,
Which we also did.
Okay,
whole series.
so even though they're, the minimum wage is going up,
No, there's no published increase in minimum wage January 1st.
oh, that's good. We got to where we were trying to go. Okay. All right,
Good.
so this is just hours.
Let's see, school and gym, nothing. Parks. So parks is, if you see the part-time all other goes up, but he was in a unique position where he reduced his part-time seasonal by the same amount. So there's really no impact to his operating budget on adding a new position. There is this impact on benefits, but not on
Yeah,
here.
which comes up later, yeah.
Right. But I can tell you, he has a terrible time getting seasonal people to work. It's
Everybody
terrible.
does, yeah.
It's
More and more. Nobody wants to work.
And when we do get seasonal, people that are,
What if we
They don't
just
survive
got
our-
If we
part,
get past the
they don't survive our
background
background
check.
what if we just got
Could do that
part-time, not, like, just part-time?
part-time.
So not at paying at a seasonal rate, but at a better, more lucrative rate, but not a benefited position. Is that a thing?
Well, because they use them full-time during the year, during the growing season. They're used part-time, the seasonal employees are.
You don't need one.
Part-time seasonal works full-time hours during the year. Is that,
Right, correct.
Yeah.
you know,
They work
during-
full-time hours from April to
I see,
October.
okay.
It's all about the quality of how you want your grounds cut.
So
If you
how
want
would
to cut
going
the staff,
to,
then your grounds will, you have weeds and stuff.
but if you're removing, someone who's working full-time for just, say, 3 months and creating an FTE,
Right.
what is that person gonna do for the remaining nine months?
So they would be working, they would assist in building maintenance and in public works for the ensuing 3 months. That would be November, December, January, February, and then they start back in March, so 4 months. So I guess what I'm saying is, you could just go back to the old way. You just wouldn't save any money. You'd save the benefits. The old way would be to
Same
move it
cost.
78,000.
It's the same cost considering benefits?
No, I'm saying, you would save the benefits.
Oh, I see. Okay,
You would save
But
the,
you'd have to find
30.
people over and over and over.
yeah,
but it's just,
And
it's
that's-
exhausting for them to keep finding people over and over and over again.
I understand.
And the people that we find are not, working out. Let's put it that way.
Or they find a permanent full-time job
Right.
during the season, and then he's got to start the process all over again.
Cut their arm off.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get comp claims, we get a lot of comp
Yeah.
claims on
Get a bunch of people
seasonal.
who don't know, work them out or they stick their foot in.
Yeah. Okay. Darling House, no change. Darling House, we get reimbursed by the Historical Society. It's in revenue, so that's sort of a pass-through. Library, no adjustments. Same with Conservation Commission. And Economic Development, $40,000 that we discussed earlier.
Is
Well,
this something we want to consider putting back?
I thought it was a great idea to invest in our, we are struggling so hard as a town to diversify our grand list in this way. It's an innovative approach. I mean, you made a point that resonated. I don't disagree with the point you made earlier. And I feel like this could be a good use of money that pays off for us in the long term.
There's,
Yeah, of all the places that we have underinvested
It
over
is
the
an
last
economic development.
decade, that's
this
gotta
is
be-
very specifically for a single program, that's one thing to keep in mind.
Yeah.
But I do think, I think it's not only innovative, but there's an opportunity to, I don't know. One element of it was also, for example, I think we talked about having some sort of a winter festival in the area here, where you kind of combine retail with the trees and things of that nature, and it just sets up a different tone. And that's the kind of thinking that,
So my only hesitation was the meeting where it was presented, the Main Street person was also at the meeting and expressed some concerns about this being the right fit. And I wasn't at the meeting, so I couldn't ask any more. I don't know if there's more to that. I would like to hear more, because we would want to spend this money with something that's really the right fit and that we're sure of. And that's why I was thinking the Main Street assessment might give us more information about what is the best use of money.
I can tell you that EDC spent a considerable amount of time basically indicating that, will it really work here in Woodbridge? Is this the environment? And, they came up to a conclusion, they demonstrated, and I'm sure they can do it for us as well, demonstrated what the capabilities were, to the point that it's it was exciting. It was, it was exciting to think about doing something like this.
Did they
So-
come back like a second presentation?
They did. And I'm sure they would, we haven't really, it's not something that's going to start right away. I'm sure they would consider via video coming back again to give more information to the Board of Selectmen. But it's an interesting thing. It's because you're in a situation that you've been mentioning for the whole time, David, where it's tough year. It's just time to do something like this where you're adding $40,000 to economic development, and I'm the first to try to.
But uniquely, this could yield relief financially.
To a certain extent, what you probably get is you'll fill space in the business district. Filling the space of existing buildings isn't bringing us a lot of money. But the idea of doing something like this and continuing to do something like this and helping that, I mean, we have space in the business district that has been closed for years.
Well,
And if it could eliminate, if it can help with that, it's not a bad thing.
or if you can fill it with appropriate stuff, it does seem to me that our business district has a lot of things that really don't add to the economic development of the area. I mean, things that could be elsewhere, car dealerships or automobile repairs or those kinds of things that are kind of not exactly what people go window shopping for.
Right.
Is
But
that
if-
what the assessment will
Yeah, and if we,
eliminate?
you gotta start getting a little bit of momentum there. If you get people down there, then money is gonna, I would think that money and investors and people who wanna make money would look at people who are coming in at a town that's trying to bring in people and bring in businesses as a great place to start to get their business going. And that, there are a lot of towns that do a really good job of that. We're not one of them.
The other
Our chance.
element of this is also, EDC has historically, you gear it up with some really exciting, really great people, and eventually it just dies because there's just not enough that they do. So, they use everybody's limited in terms of the time, they use their time elsewhere. I mean, this does demonstrate a commitment to them in terms of, we need you to do more, we want you to do more they're the ones who brought this up.
And I think demonstrates to the town our commitment to investing in our business district, which is crying out for us, really.
So if we put the money in here, though,
So can I make a suggestion?
yeah,
So you could put the money in there, but not necessarily use it for that function. If
Well,
you
I'm
want to
wondering-
wait to hear from Main Street first, maybe they have another idea, that's,
but I'm also wondering, rather than putting it right into their budget, since I think the Board of Selectmen sounds like we're eager to hear what this is, what these possibilities are, and if we put it in the
well,
Board
they
of
won't be able
Selectmen
to spend it.
budget.
They can't spend it.
They can't spend it, they need to sign a contract,
Yeah.
they can't sign a contract on their own. They can purchase order, they can go
So they
purchase
would come
order.
back to us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'd have to come back to us.
Yeah, you and Mika.
Right,
Well, the Board of Selectmen,
And since I bring everything to
Yeah.
the selectmen.
but he could certainly bring it to the board.
I mean, because again, this is that sort of like, it's in our strategic plan, so.
Yeah, I think we ought to put some of Steve's $121,000 package.
You take the 40 from the benefits, so I took 80.
Well, actually.
I mean, that's part of it.
Yeah.
So from
So it's gotta go
from
through
your,
personnel.
we're saying we're adding it back.
Yeah.
I'm supportive of that.
I support that.
Yes,
We need,
excellent. It's 10 of 11.
again,
Keep it along, guys.
Okay.
going for a new record.
You can take it that way.
Oh, can I?
Short discussion. $40,000.
Benefits is the next department. Continue to monitor the healthcare. We're currently getting pricing on healthcare, and so that's sort of been changing, changes as we go through the process. And
That's
so I
the
need some
300,
adjustments.
51300.
51300, 51310, and 51320.
Did we skip a little bit line?
Oh, yeah, I just skipped it over because there was no change to that. Yeah.
And workers' comp is up 12%.
Yeah, that's another item that we continue to monitor along with our insurance.
nothing we can really do about any of that, right?
What's that?
I mean, you go out to bid, I mean, we talked about this at some point, you
Oh,
talk out to
tax.
bid on things, you try to find it. I know, because I just did this for now.
Oh.
Does yours go up too?
Well, it was going up and then we found someone else and it's going down, but then, the next year it'll probably go up.
Right.
So,
Right.
you get a year of relief.
You do.
Spend it, but
We've
then
done
spend too much
before.
time
Right.
negotiating, getting a new provider and it goes down.
You do that like every couple of years,
Yeah.
and then it goes back up. Yeah, right.
But 12% just feels like a lot.
Yeah.
It always feels like a
12.
lot. Yeah.
It probably won't be 12. I'm hopeful it's less. Let's see. Debt service, no change. Woodbridge Board of
That's,
Education.
what drove that up?
The borrowing we did for the roof and the grounds.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Board of Ed was reduced because we received information on our retirement, and I got an email from the business manager saying we can reduce the budget by, I think it was 45,000. I don't know what that is. Because of that, so that's what that reduction is. I had budgeted for our retirement, the figure that it was, so we didn't see any savings, but she had budgeted a little higher. 47,000. That's the change.
So, Tony, do you have a sense, I know that
What's that?
Amity budget is shown here as 7.32, but that also factors in their enrollment. Do you know where Amity is with their percentage increase on the budget?
I do have that because I follow, Terry sends me updates as they go through the process. And, let's see if I got the most recent one here.
Are they still changing their budget? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, they have,
They haven't voted on anything, have they?
I think they-
I-
My meeting was Monday.
I think they voted something out to the full board.
Because I went through the other meetings looking for where they'd taken any votes on their budgets. That was just the superintendent's budget that we saw when we.
Yeah, because they had a Board of Finance meeting beforehand, so, so I don't know that they voted on it on Monday, David.
I just know that she sent me a revised summary schedule here.
I had intended to go, but I just.
You said our Woodbridge program.
Well,
So the,
So their expenditures go up 3.16% is the latest.
right, so their budget increase is 3.16, and I'm asking that because Beatrice is
So the-
not.
Yeah, no, keep in mind, it's 3.16, but debt
At
services,
2.3% if the debt service impact.
your debt services went down. And so 3 point is the, yeah, so basically.
2.3%
So it's
is the
really
difference.
five something.
Like if you take the debt service out, because it's such a
Getting
dramatic drop.
closer to Beatrice.
I'm sorry.
Very much so.
Well,
If you remove debt service from their
increase
budget,
in personnel.
because it drops
The
significantly,
extra teacher.
the increase is 5 point.
oh, their increase is much bigger.
Right, because
it looks good.
It looks good because the debt service drops significantly.
Well, it looks bad to us because of their 3.16%, we get 7.32%.
Correct. Right.
And
Because that's enrollment.
what can we do about this kind of treatment? Because it seems like the visit that we got talking about the budget from the superintendent, it starts with this thing, which is 100 and however many pages, and when I get a thing like this on a budget, and you start looking through and you see that the first 13 pages are word for word with every 13 pages have been in this year and this year. These 2 years, they didn't even bother to change the numbers on those pages. They were completely inaccurate. And you just know that they can't be doing any zero-based budgeting. They're simply looking at these line items and saying, well, if this year, it's got to be that, because it doesn't feel like they are really concerned about us. And the thing that really bothered me about the whole presentation was there was not one word about how this is going to help the Woodbridge students. compared to Beecher's presentation, which told us our kids are number one in the, on language in the third, and number two in math, and everything they said was about what's happening for us. It seemed like, we know that because Bethany's only going up 2%, and Orange is only going up 0.8%, you guys got no chance of voting our budget down, so you're going to pay for it all. And that kind of smugness on the part of budgeting, it just seems like it almost seems like it's a conspiracy, because why wouldn't Orange vote for this?
Last year, I went to a lot of their budget, not a lot, but I went to a couple of their budget
Yeah.
meetings. I can tell you they're doing detailed budgeting in terms of going over the line items. What they're doing is they're adding programs that they feel need to be added, but they're not necessarily, just adding to existing budgets per se. It's really, and they're also doing, last year, based on that experience, they were also doing what they can in terms of reducing, like trying to change bus routes, identifying, they saved hundreds of tens, if not over $100,000 in trying to aggregate the bus routes so that the people who are going to Black Tech and the technical schools, instead of picking everybody else up, picking everyone up at their homes, they centralized it to the extent that they could. So I know that they're looking at that data. To me, what you're getting at is something that we should discuss, because it seems we're getting, the way we're getting hammered.
We're getting hammered,
because we're getting more people, but there's no, adding one more person.
And in fact, we're helping them hammer us. We are investing a lot in Beecher because we believe in good education. And I've heard from some people who say, well, they get to Amity and they don't have enough of this, and you said something about the math, right? The calculus situation wasn't very strong, and
There's some pathways that could be fine-tuned for the way that colleges have changed their requirements and how they look at applicants that could benefit our community.
And we don't hear that. We don't hear the changes that they're making they have to make have anything to do with Woodbridge kids. We hear from our own school system that our Woodbridge kids are smart, that they're being well prepared. Are we preparing the smart ones just to go to prep school? Because I know we have a lot of people who pay $30,000 a year to send their kids off to private education, and they still pay their taxes to us to pay for the kids, apparently, who are coming here from Orange and Bethany to go into the Amity system.
It's a discussion that, these are items that we really do need. If we want to have an impact, we have to decide how we want to have an impact and move forward with it.
I would like to know that when these kind of numbers come up and then the superintendent gets in front of them and say, that time they were at 3.66% or something. We're only going up 3.66%, and that's at the low end of the range. Well, she was talking to Woodbridge, and at that time it was 7.8 for us. Mm-hmm. And that isn't fooling anybody, and it says to me, we only went up 3, but you guys went up 7.8% because you can't do anything about it. And it suggests that it's, here we are investing in education a lot at Beecher, and that attracts students to us. If you look at Bethany's age group, school age group, and Orange's, it's pretty flat all the way through. Ours has a peak. Ours go up when they get to school age, and they keep going up, which is one of the reasons that the census is going against us right now. And so eventually somebody's going to say, hey, wait a minute, we must be over-investing in Beecher. Because by drawing all these kids in, it's just costing us more to educate the Orange and Bethany kids when they get to Amity. Because we're ending up paying for it.
It's not always been the case, but I understand, I understand, and I think
it's a $2 million piece of last year it was 18 million, now it's 20 million for one of our line items. there are only two line items that have 7 digits in them, and it's Beecher and it's Amity. And Amity went up twice as much as Beecher did.
One of the things I think we need to do, and I include myself when I said we, is during our budget meetings, asking more questions. Like a lot of the questions we ask today of ourselves are things we should be challenging the departments, Amity, Beecher, in regards to what they're presenting. I've always felt like I'm too passive in terms of those meetings, because you're just kind of taking it in. But I think we should approach these meetings going forward, the budget cycle going forward, the way we're doing it here, with the mindset of, I need to be, I need to know whether I'm going to approve this or not. You know, do I want to go here? Actually challenge the individuals who are sitting in front of us with questions that we are asking ourselves, so that we get those answers and we're in a position to say, you know, when we have these kind of meetings, this is easy, this is easy, this is easy. So, and that's the opportunity I think we have with Amity or with Beecher.
At the Amity.
Well, we could go there,
Yeah.
So it's
but
also
when they're in front of
important to
us,
remember-
Yeah,
when they're in front of us specifically to answer our questions.
Well,
But it's also important to remember that we have a member of the Amity Finance Committee who's a member of our Board of Finance. So all during the year when they're approaching the budget. So one of the things I did say when they were here, and it has to do with this shift and the drop in the debt service, they're paying pay-as-you-go projects that could be bonded.
Yeah.
When it's pay-as-you-go, the year our enrollment is up,
Yeah.
or we're paying an outsized amount.
yeah,
If we're not
they're over
giving them that
budgeting.
feedback,
That's
then they're
what
gonna
I-
do it when they can.
That's what I mean by slush. They over budget. In March of last year, did they cut back the charge? Wasn't it?
So they're not running the kind of operating
Was it this year?
surpluses they were, but
Didn't-
they are putting 2% in each year into the capital non-recurring, and then they're spending that without going to
I
referendum
know.
on projects.
Exactly. It's not
And
good for us.
The message that I said when they were here is bonding would perhaps definitely be in our better interest if they were bonding these projects. Plus you're spreading that out and it's a 20-year lifespan, it's appropriate. The people who live in town 20 years from now are going to benefit from the building just as much as we're going to benefit in the first 19 years. The taxes are raised there when you're bonding something. You're
Well-
getting a full range.
There are parts of what they say in this budget that actually say, we're doing this so that you don't have to have another referendum to.
We don't take
So
bonding.
your voters don't have to vote again
Yeah.
on stuff.
No.
Well,
But the voters don't
I
get
would
to
just
say
as soon
that.
they not save us the referendum and not over taxes.
And that's the message that we should be sending them all year round through the Amity Finance Committee and our Amity Board reps, because they can also.
What about our reps on Amity's board?
That's,
Are they,
we don't have a liaison from the Board of Selectmen.
no, but we don't have a liaison, but we have 4 people who are elected. Do they stand up and say, listen, you can't do this to Woodbridge?
They did a lot of talking about it. But
I
we didn't give them
attend
we didn't give them the input. And I don't know,
Can we?
maybe the Board of
Yes,
Finance.
we
has.
should.
Yes,
Yeah, so that piece about
Because
bonding
what's gonna happen?
projects, we should say strong.
What's gonna happen is their referendum's gonna happen earlier than our budget.
it does.
And it will get passed, because you'd be crazy not to vote for it if you're in Orange.
Right.
And there are a lot more people than us, and our people don't tend to pay much attention to those things anyway. And after it's passed, we're gonna have our budget, and people are gonna go crazy on us when the biggest single number in our budget, which is the $20 million that these guys want, went up 7%, and we couldn't do anything about it.
Well, and that's kind of the point, I know we're late tonight, so Amity, we can't, at this point, can't do much about it. Beecher, we can, if we want to,
Well, we shouldn't, but
well,
I think, what I fear is that people are gonna say, wait a minute, eventually, somebody's gonna look at this like it's the stock market instead of the schools, and they're gonna say, we have overinvested in Beecher, because we're drawing all these kids to Woodbridge to go to Beecher, and then
But
then
then
we're
what would we do,
paying,
David?
then we're overpaid for what we're getting out of it.
Well, what would we do if we found ourselves in that position? Would we sit here tonight and cut the Beecher budget? If you think we're over-investing, I don't know if I agree.
I
but-
don't know a time where that's a decision that's made by people who, you know, I don't know that it'll be us.
I don't think we're over-investing, but I think that we are, I think that we're really setting ourselves up to be the patsies in a very bad equation.
We have to, let's finish our
Yeah.
exercise here, because, you know, we're,
Sure.
it's late. But I think it's a great conversation. Again, I'm a proponent for as much dialogue as we need to have in order to get things done.
Yes.
So let's,
After we hear the town's people's responses to this budget, we may very well be cutting back on this.
great.
Just to be clear, we can't do anything with the empty budget.
Right.
We can't say, we don't want to see more than a 3%. But I still want to say it. It sounds like that's what you want to say, right? We don't want to see more than 3%. So we can send that message, hey, you know, Amity, we want to see this at 3% for us.
What we can do that we haven't done is what you said, we can make sure that our representatives understand where we sit, to make sure that they can communicate that. And whether they win or not, you don't know, but at least we can make sure that the message is being sent.
The other
That's-
option
that's-
is,
that's-
when they have their surplus, they
And-
vote, after they close their books, they vote to put the 2% into capital non-recurring. We could urge our representatives and the AFC to not put the 2% in, it's not required. That's a vote, and that is taken in like August each year. And it won't come back to us for another
I'd like to
year.
have one of our folks really explain it, because there's a view from their perspective that
But
if you listen to, makes you feel like, well, I understand why they're doing
But
what
they're
they're doing.
doing that to avoid bonding. And if we agree that we want things bonded, then we want them to stop putting money in capital.
But when you say we agree, that has to be
If we agree.
Woodbridge, Bethany, and Orange.
Well,
That
no,
can't be just Woodbridge.
I think that Woodbridge has to
Add-
give our
We
input.
can advocate.
Yeah, we don't have to wait for Bethany and Orange to agree with us, we can still advocate for our position, we might lose. if
Right, and we can
Bethany
advocate
and
for
Orange
just
don't
staying at
agree.
3%.
That is my point. My
Yeah,
point
yeah, yeah.
is,
So the idea of asking them not to put 2% in capital non-recurring, that's a surplus, then it comes back to us next year, right?
yeah,
That's why
and
it's either
from
surplus or
to my way of
surplus.
thinking,
We can ask them to do
I'd
that.
like to give them the opportunity to say why they are.
Tell me,
So
when
we can
I read
understand
the
that.
minutes of the Amity School Board, did I read it correctly that they reduced their March payments of the towns by $1 million total? proportional?
That's what they're saying, I haven't gotten the official notice yet.
So
I'll probably get it.
why would they reduce what we have to pay by $1 million in March, toward the end of the year? Why
Because
would
that's how they give us back the surplus. They reduce our payment to them as opposed to cutting us a check.
Which means basically that
That we're gonna generate an automatic surplus in that annuity line.
So we know that every year they're just basically saying, yeah, we overtaxed you by $1 million.
Again, there's a lot more to it than that, in terms of, you know, discussions that I've had, because this was a big issue last year,
Yeah,
or years past.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago. And,
So I don't
Well,
know.
but they
I
were,
worked all 5 referendums.
I don't want to open up
They were
another can of
right. We
worms, but
were-
on the point of advocacy on the Amity Board of Education, the number of representatives from each town, is that based on enrollment?
It is,
And how often does that get reevaluated?
when there's enrollment shifts.
So if there's an upcoming enrollment shift, that's something else that we need to advocate for. If we need
Yeah.
a bigger voice on that board.
Well, and
And this
likely,
enrollment shift is large enough,
Yeah.
then that's something that needs to be reexamined.
yeah, and likely Bethany would lose a representative. if we did.
Maybe 7%.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, and something we need to
There's
Well,
something that triggers them to do it.
there are costs.
Yeah, we need to find out what that
Let's
is.
finish our session
Yeah.
here. Let's finish
Fair
that up, because but great point, and let's make sure we.
Aren't there costs,
As we go
aren't
forward.
educational costs that are related to running the school? I mean, there are things that are not related to how many students are there. A lot of things that could be divided according to a different formula, because we have a certain number of taxpayers, and we have probably more students per taxpayer than the other two towns do.
You know, I kind of wish I could get you to feel more strongly about things.
Okay, I'm done. I'm done.
Conversation for another day, but that is an interesting point. point, because there are certain building things that are fixed that are not related to the number of students, but that, we need to take that up at
Please, keep.
I mean, there are a lot of ways to make this fair. It currently is very unfair, and it encourages those two towns to ally against us.
Let's make sure we bring this forward.
Let's
not
put
let
a pin in it,
And let's.
if we
bring it
may.
forward. But now I think we've given Tony and Karen enough time to kind of give us an idea.
Yeah,
of
so we
some
have,
of the things here.
aside
I will
from the
make sure
capital
we come back to
adjustments, we have 4 additional adjustments. We have a reduction in the litigation line of the Board of Selectmen by $14,000. We have a reduction in the police budget in various lines of $81,510 for the elimination of the 24th requested position. We have elimination of $40,000 in benefits for the benefits related to that police officer position. And we have an addition of $40,000 in economic development. That brings a total expenditure budget of $61,640,964. Total non-tax revenues of $6,411,737. Total amount to be raised in taxes, $55,229,227. That's a 5.88 increase from the previous year. And the grand, give me 1 second on the number, please.
So I just have a question about the Board of Selectmen. So we did more than just litigation.
I didn't, the only other line you talked about was the part-time one, and
We talked a hefty amount, though didn't reach consensus on.
right,
Part-time clerical.
Yeah.
I thought
Right,
was-
well, part-time clerical and the general professional service.
there was no consensus on this, which is why I didn't do anything.
Yeah, so part-time clerical, I'd like us to revisit and add back in if we so choose later, once we know what that job description is.
Do you want to reduce it? Did we eliminate it?
I don't know that we did. I
There
don't think we
wasn't
reached
consensus.
There wasn't, so you have to call it on that.
Mhm.
And I would advocate for having more on that line. When we took 81 out of the police, I would advocate for putting it there. So I would make that 121. Moving it from one place to the other, that's what I was suggesting.
121?
I'm advocating for keeping that 40
Yeah,
and adding the 81.
for what? For a full-time position?
The
I
police,
think I said, I didn't bring anything through personnel. I think it's been demonstrated that we need more staff and we need, it's
So
come to
that wouldn't
personnel
just be for the
repeatedly.
community center?
It would not just be for the.
Okay, that's what I was,
Yeah,
why I was confused.
and because if there's not money in the budget, then we,
So how many positions are we adding?
well, this is a half, I'm saying there's probably need for a full-time, and whether that's 2 part-times, if you stick it on the part-time clerical for now, it could be multiple part-times, or it could be adjusting people's positions, because multiple positions have been adjusted in the last year in this department. We're gonna see that again. I'm pretty confident about it, because we do not have enough, from what I can tell, in this department for all the work we're doing.
I'd prefer that we take a look, that holistic look at personnel. I think if we've identified human services, library, recreation. Take a look at what we have existing and then add something appropriate so that townspeople feel that we actually have a plan for this rather than we just feel this number should be higher. That's
So-
just me.
Is there a number that you would feel comfortable building in? Because if we did that work and then realized, okay, we don't need maybe a full-time person, maybe we need a portion of that money, we're still not budgeted for it for the rest of the year.
Yeah, so I think that we should not budget that 40,000 in that line item until we've made a decision that we actually need that. That's a part-time clerical position that,
well,
Who's the decision?
Just-
But I'm saying, is there an amount that you would feel comfortable with?
no.
And keep in mind, only 28 of the 40 is what we're talking about.
right.
Right.
The rest of it's blight officer.
Yeah. In part-time clerical,
Yeah,
Yes.
it's not really clerical, but it's part-time, so
is light here rather than in
blight's here,
building?
yeah.
So what dollar amount is the part-time
28.
clerical?
28,000.
That's the amount I'd like to cut. That's just me.
For the community center person, it's 28,000?
Yeah,
Oh,
It's part-time.
the rest of it's blight officer,
That's why I
okay.
went from 12 to 40.
right.
When you say we haven't defined that there's a needs issue, I have to disagree with you, obviously, because we work in town hall, we put it in here because there's a need. And, you know, we've tried to explain the need. If we haven't done a good enough job to sway you, that's absolutely
Last
fine.
August, we heard that this was going to be a separate consideration by the Board of Selectmen. I didn't realize it was not going to be a consideration by the Board of Selectmen. I think there is time for the Personnel Committee to look at this. It may be, Mika, when Personnel sees it, then we do agree. But I'm on Personnel and I haven't seen it. No one has shared this
Does
information.
personnel typically create the positions?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
We see it.
So, personnel creates the positions?
We see
So,
the job
You
description.
see job descriptions, so, I mean, what it sounds like is that you would have wanted personnel to have a budget meeting to define or create
It's
a
been
position.
known for some time that the committee that's doing the building has thought that there needs to be a position.
They communicated
to do
that
something.
multiple
I'm not
times
sure
to us.
what. I'm not sure what furnishing we have in the building, really. So I don't know if we can really have birthday parties and these kind of things. I would just like more detail. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm against doing this. I agree that it is going to be a wonderful thing when that building is available and it should be used by the community. I just want us to be careful. We're increasing FTE at a time when this is a difficult budget year. That's all I'm saying. So if you guys want to do a proposal, I'll just abstain from that vote or I'll vote against it and that's fine.
I think it is definitely a good idea for personnel to take a look at the job description and to look at our other services in town and see if there's overlap, if they can contribute to that. But I think that this budget will take us through June of 2026. And if we don't put something in there that we can allocate to a grant writer, to whomever, if we don't put some dollar amount in there, we won't be able to do anything until after that point.
You're suggesting that we need to look at, you would want more information, but
Yeah, maybe it is a grant writer instead of a person.
But we would still need to
Looking.
leave money in that
I just,
line item.
Yeah.
we don't have to define that in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah.
but
That's
except,
something different.
It's
That's why-
odd to
that's my
be
point
out
of
of
putting it in the budget.
Adding things to the budget without knowing why we're doing it. If you
Well, I
guys
think we
feel
don't know
comfortable
why we're doing
adding to the budget and then making a determination of what the job is gonna be like,
I
all
absolutely
right.
am. There's a
I'm
budget.
I'm a little more open to that, but
I don't know
I'm
exactly.
not open to that at all. Because you're not telling me what the need is, you're saying there's a lot of need. I think there's a lot of need in a lot of things around here. And clearly, I mean, the fire department thought there was millions of dollars worth of need. So did the police department, so did the schools. So, you know, this is the toughest budget we've seen in a long time. It's good, not only is it a tough budget, but it's gonna hit not just in mill rate, it's gonna hit in dollars for a lot of people in this town who are gonna be really mad. Now, the good news is,
Now, David, there's a distinction though. The budget is a budget. We do the same thing every year. We try to determine what monies we need in order to run the town. We're doing the same thing we do every year for the budget season.
I understand.
It's coming in a year where the implication of revaluation, which is what you mentioned we don't really have control over, is also hitting, so it makes it harder for those people who it's gonna hit.
And we're getting 7.5 or 7.8 or whatever % raise in the $20 million part that represents Amity School. That's already going to be part of it and passed. And then when we go to this town meeting and 500 people show up, the Board of Selectmen is the first line item that they get to start going with. And they got to go through every single line item. That's what our charter says, line item by line item. If they don't like the budget, you go through it. And about the fourth one there is your part-time clerical. That's
I can
gone.
tell you, I can tell you that I'm not concerned about people coming in. I think that's the wonderful thing about the town meeting type of form of government. We can talk to one another. From my perspective, what I do in this budget, and believe me, we've looked to try to cut what we can. We're here today trying to cut what we can. I can tell you, every single one of us came into this room today thinking, we're gonna bring this down. Wherever it is, we're gonna bring this down. And we did. So how much?
Not enough.
Because, yeah, but why, Andrea? Because you're looking at it saying, we need to run the town.
Well, we couldn't bring
Okay.
Amity's budget down.
But Mika,
And
this is a
because of
line
that.
item that's going up from the proposal. That's, That's
Well,
different.
it's different, but I'm also, well,
Because it wasn't proposed to us.
Sure.
And we would have had an opportunity to talk to the people proposing it, et cetera, if it had been presented to us. It's still not presented to us. I
What's
don't.
What is it you need to know, specifically?
The job description.
And what are we aiming to do? If it is
There's
to book
we-
X
that's
number of
fine.
events so that
We
this amount of
recognize.
revenue comes in, we should book the revenue too.
I'm sorry?
Revenue. If this is to generate revenue,
So what
we
I
should
make
have
the
the revenue.
suggestion? We could use the revenue to fund the position to the extent we do get revenue. And,
But to get the revenue, we may need the position.
right?
That's the challenge.
It's this chicken and egg thing we're
Well,
having.
it's 7:22, 11:20. And I.
You can't even
we have-
see straight
yeah.
anymore.
I have a 45-minute ride in the snow.
In the
I really
snow.
like
In the
it.
snow?
Guys, yes, it's been snowing,
We don't-
and it's
Has it?
11:40,
We don't have to vote on
guys,
this
like,
Now, we
seriously.
don't have to vote on the total here.
Let me, we can table, thank you, Tony, I appreciate it. We can table this particular topic. I just want to make sure we're in a good spot with everything else that we've done.
Gate text me.
So Tony gave us the things that we were talking about.
I'm,
Right.
okay, sorry, go ahead.
Taking it out
Oh,
or
I'm
putting it in?
Is it a contingency, fund it out of contingency? There's a number of ways to do this, just to move this thing forward.
so when you had encapsulated it, this 40 was still there? Yes?
What I just mentioned to you,
Yeah.
the 28?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, the 28 was still in there, and I'd have to take it out.
I would like it for it to stay there. I'm hearing Sheila wants it, but if you want to make a motion to move it out, then you should make that motion.
I move that we approve the budget with the changes we made and in addition, moving that money out.
I would second it. I agree with that.
I don't. I think it's.
Any more discussion on this? Right, so
Discussion?
we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion on it?
I just want to say that I
I
don't
disagree
agree
with
with
you.
it.
All right. So second,
Yeah, we have-
first,
Is there any
second.
additional discussion? All in favor of removing it? All opposed to removing it? With the tie, I vote to not remove it.
Okay?
Motion carries.
So,
And that's specific to the $28,000
Yeah.
for that
The
position.
rest of the change, the motion was to keep the rest of the things and move that, so.
so then,
So we need to vote
you need
to,
to vote on
on the rest of the.
the rest of that, right?
Need a motion.
Make a motion to approve the changes to the budget as we discussed and that Tony outlined. It was 4 items changed.
Second? I'll second it. Discussion?
I made clear what boundary, I cannot vote for this town planner, so that, to me, that line item is one reason why I cannot support this, which I think I made very clear 3 hours ago, or whatever that was.
So we have a motion, we have a second. Any more discussion?
So your issue with this is keeping the town planner in?
Yes, I don't think we should be paying right now $83,000 for another consultant, and knowing the consultant we currently have, I don't support that consultant for what I believe is a conflict of interest.
The line item in the budget doesn't necessarily have to be the same.
No,
sorry?
but I can't vote on $83,000 when it's not clear, and the only information I have is who's in this, occupying this role now.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with that point, and I just think, I know we've gone through it line by line, I've talked all night, and I still think it's a big budget, it's too much, the town deserves better.
So what are you suggesting?
I'm just gonna vote my conscience, but, if we,
Well, what are you suggesting and how we fix that? That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
there's
It's
a
one thing to say, we've gone line item
That's
by
it,
line.
there's a motion
What else can we do?
to block
Is there
that.
more you want to take out, then tell us what you want to take out.
just because we voted on a particular line item that, to keep 28,000 in, doesn't mean that I support that, now that it's
I
in
know
the
you
budget.
don't, but I'm saying, in terms of.
Well, I'll just vote against it. I mean, I don't want it, I don't think we have to get to unanimity. I think we've talked about all
I'm
of
not
that
trying to get to
to death.
unanimity.
You know?
I do want to feel like we just went over an entire budget. We spent hours going over an entire budget line item by line item in your.
And there are two line items that I still don't like. I don't like the 18,000, the
Okay, that's what I'm trying to get
28,000.
at.
And I
It's the two
don't,
line items. I think there's a means by which we can deal with that as opposed to saying, I don't want this entire budget. That's what I'm getting at. We have another meeting on the 26th, okay?
yeah.
And if you feel that strongly about that particular item.
I'm so afraid.
I'm not sleeping here on the
You know,
26th.
that's one or two items, is what I'm saying. So, David, what I'm saying is, there's an entire, we just went through 40 some odd pages.
I know.
So,
And
if
probably
you're saying you
39
got
of
a
those
problem with
pages
two
are fine.
items, I'm inclined to say, well, let's figure out what we gotta do about those two items.
I'm looking at the clock.
Okay.
We have a motion, we have a second.
Any other discussion? I'm just not comfortable. If you feel as strongly as you do, quite honestly, I'm just not comfortable. Steve. Like, you know, I feel like and I'd like to, for example, I'd like to check with our attorney and with some other people to see if there's a particular conflict of interest, as you've described. That type of thing there is important, I think. And that's the only item I really have an issue with, is when I say an issue, I think that's worthwhile to look into and to hold up on. That's
I
what I'm
suggest
getting
then that it's not really actually tabling the motion, because I suggest we move it forward.
Table to a date certain.
Yeah.
If the issue is about the person or the company or the consultant, you know, this is just a number there. It doesn't have to be that person. To me, this represents a town planner. If there's going to be a change in the town planner, that's a different discussion. This is money for a town planner. That's what that represents. To me, it does not necessarily represent that.
Again, I've got
Good. See, I can be at peace, because if it's determined that there's any kind of, you know, if this isn't a good decision with this particular town planner, I'm not at issue with changing that. But I do feel we need a town planner. I feel strongly we need a town planner. That's where I am. But it absolutely doesn't have to be the town planner we have, based on the concerns that you bring up. That's what I'm saying. So if that's the only issue, that's what I'm saying. I think we can care for that.
I feel that politically speaking, my vote is my only way to suggest what I believe about the budget, which is that that's the wrong person who's in there. And to vote for it, it's going to come out in the paper the next time we have a political campaign by the leader of the opposition that, well, you voted, it was unanimous. I don't like that. I've gone through that before, and I'm not going to do it again, because I know how politics works. I don't think this is a political issue, but I know it will be used against me if I cave in and vote for something that I don't
So you're
believe
saying
in.
regardless of
Regardless of where we end up,
you're not.
I think you need a town planner. I don't disagree with that. I think we would have been better off if we had really seen this OCA conflict for what it is, and how bad it is for us, and how bad it looks for us, and
I
how,
see it, David. I see it.
right? And so, yeah, we made a mistake, but, you know, the only way I have to rectify that is to not be called out for being it was unanimous. We had a unanimous vote. It's like the school system saying we've been 13 years in a row.
I can't speak to that. But what I can tell you is that if it turns out that this is not the right choice for us to make from a town planner standpoint, I'll be the first to tell you that. And that we will make a change. But I do feel very strongly we need a town planner.
I get it.
So,
And we have a chance, right now.
For something else.
This can be voted in, and I can vote against it, and it can still be voted in.
What I don't want to have happen is for us to postpone something and go over the whole thing again and spend another 3 hours doing what.
I don't want to do that
think
either.
anybody wants
So-
That's why
that.
we have a motion, we have a second, we've had discussion.
Let's vote.
Can we call a vote?
That's when discussion is done,
Do we
yes.
want to continue discussion? Okay.
Anything else?
Nothing that I haven't said already in given time, I think.
Could you repeat the motion, please?
The motion is to keep the budget as amended with the 4 changes that Tony articulated.
Any additional comments? All in favor? Opposed? All carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Why are you looking at me? Second? Good.